First uphill finish of the 2015 Giro. A shortish stage, Simon Clarke aiming to stay in pink. It's going to be a real difficult one for him, given the fact that we feel that today, whoever wants to win the Giro d'Italia probably would like to show some strength. There is a chance, though, Matt Stevens, that Orica Greenedge could keep this pink jersey in the team. Will we be seeing a fourth Orica Greenedge rider in pink tomorrow with Esteban Chaves?
It's possible. You know, Chaves has been riding very strongly, sits only 10 seconds behind on the general classification. Remember, the time bonus is at the finish. And when you look at the climb, although it's going to be a tough proposition, especially given the hard racing of the last few days, you know, imagine what it feels like to be in Orica Greenedge at the moment. They've dominated the first part of this race. There's been a fascinating GC battle, but they're sharing out the pink jersey amongst them. You know, we've had Gerrans, Matthews, and now Simon Clarke. But what a brave ride by Clarke yesterday. He got in the move, hung on by the skin of his teeth. Well, that was actually dropped by the lead group, fought valiantly to get back on, then carried out that sprint. We think he won, but we'll let him off that one.
I still don't believe him.
But it ended up, scored a time bonus at the end and ended up in the pink jersey. But what a start. And Matt White again, let's go back to the interview after the team time trial. They want to hold on to the pink jersey all the way to Abertone. They've done it, but they're in a position now, given the way Chaves is riding, that he has a realistic chance of having the jersey today. But this is the first, not the first opportunity for the GC contenders, because there was a real battle yesterday. We saw Astana try and tee up Fabio Aru. They got rid of Rigoberto Urán. Richie Porte was there. Kreuziger was there. Obviously, Alberto Contador was there too. But I think we'll definitely see some attacks in the finale today. But as we were talking before we came in here, perhaps a climb that could suit the attributes of Richie Porte more than Fabio Aru or even Alberto Contador today.
Certainly think so, given the gradient at 5, 6, 7%, maximum of 10. Looks like a Richie Porte climb. More of that later on. Now, we know that lots of you are following us down under in Australia and New Zealand, of course, as well. Hashtag Home of Cycling. Keep writing into us. We love hearing from you. And we also love your enthusiasm for your team, Orica Greenedge, that has been brilliant this week. You all know who Simon Clarke is, but for the rest of the world, he's a 28-year-old rider. First time in the pink jersey for Simon Clarke. He won a stage in the mountains jersey on his Grand Tour debut back at the Vuelta a España in 2012. So he has been in the limelight, of course, in a Grand Tour before. He has that experience. A former winner of the Herald Sun Tour down under in Australia back in 2014 at the start of last season as well, so 18 months or so ago. It's been a brilliant team performance, as you suggested, Matt. The objective really has been achieved, and you have to say that the pressure's off now. We saw that certainly yesterday in the Italian television after that very emotional Simon Clarke that we spoke to, just as he crossed the line, had calmed down a little. He was showing off his Italian skills. Complimenti, Simon, because he speaks a fantastic Italian after spending a lot of time out there at the Australian Institute of Sport. We know they've got a big base in Varese in the north of Italy. He's ridden in Italian teams, as we were talking earlier on today, and enjoying his day quite rightly. An excellent day for the Aussies too, statistically, because Clarke became the third Australian to take the pink jersey this year, following countrymen Gerrans and Matthews. And only two other nations besides Italy have had three different leaders in a single Giro d'Italia before. France in 1982 with Bernard Hinault, Laurent Fignon and Patrick Bonnet. Not a bad little group there. Belgium in 1976 with Eddy Merckx, Roger de Vlamingh and Johan de Muynck. Another excellent trio.
Quality trio.
And how about that for Gerrans, Matthews and Clarke? They're in a steam company there.
They certainly are. They had very rarefied atmosphere in terms of the heroes of the sport. But no, they've ridden fantastically well. And as I say, they have a realistic chance. But today is more, looking at the situation out on the road, say we've got these leaders out in front, very healthy lead now. It's gone way up now to 9 minutes and 20 seconds. But for the first time, we're seeing the race settle down. Because yesterday it was fireworks. It was completely unpredictable, very exciting. But for the first time, given how hard it's been, we're seeing the team of the pink jersey riding tempo at the front with a breakaway. So a little bit more formulaic today, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be exciting at the finish.
Well, let's get straight into that situation today. 82.3 kilometres remain with Axel Domont, Sylvain Dillier, Jan Polans, Sergej Cvetkov, and the man with them up there is Sylvain Chavanel as well. So a couple of Frenchmen in there with Domont and Chavanel, riding for AG Desert La Mondiale and IAM Cycling, the French and Swiss teams respectively. Sergej Cvetkov is a man who's ridden for both Romania and Moldova. He rides for Androni Sidamek. It's his first year at professional continental level, as he's been riding in North America for the last couple of years and shining in the North American races, more specifically the Tour of California and then the US Pro Challenge in the last couple of years. Sylvain Dillier, second season as a professional with BMC Racing, as we look at the former French champion Sylvain Chavanel we mentioned at the start, and he's joined of course by the Slovenian Jan Polans of the Lampre Merida team. It's a good break. It's a break that went early. And Matt, you talked of the race settling down. Last night, Luca Paolini was desperate for an early break to go away. He said, tomorrow I'm thinking about getting the Gruppetto in on time, just having a day off really. And unless you're working for a leader, unless you're a team that is looking at the GC and the end of this stage, it is a day to settle down, have a bit more sanity in the race instead of the craziness and uncertainty we've had over the last couple of days. And if you're a GC team even, of course, you're going to want to be on it for the end of the day today. But with Orica Greenedge controlling the front, doing the honour of looking after the Maglia Rosa as normally we would see at this point in the race, it is a time to catch your breath, at least for the first half of the stage. And very soon, we'll start to see people making their moves.
Yeah, just the whole pace of the race over the last few days, I would say, couldn't be sustained. I mean, we're only on stage 5. We still have 4.5 days to go before the first rest day even, and that's that. You know, when you ride a Grand Tour, you look at the rest day, especially if you're suffering, especially if you're tired, as this little an island of tranquility, and you kind of look at it as I kind of felt that I was like swimming in the sea, and the waves were crashing over me, and I was kind of sinking, and I wanted to get to this island, and that island was the rest day. But the riders, I know they've still got 2.5 weeks of racing. It's very, very difficult. So yeah, for the first time, I think most of the riders in the peloton, GC teams included, will be relatively happy that there's at last a little bit of control. But again, we've still got a very, very difficult finale. So most of the GC teams looking after the men, keeping them near the front of the race, leaving it to the pink jersey team to ride tempo until the final climb.
And they have around 9 minutes at the moment, with poor old Alessandro Malaguti stuck there somewhere halfway between. He's not going to make the bridge now. He might as well just sit up and get swallowed up by the peloton. We'll be back after this break with 80 kilometres remaining. Before we get to dissecting the fantasy cycling tactics of Oleg Tinkov and the Tinkov Saxo team yesterday, Oleg's been in funny mood this morning on social media, as he invariably is. Not to everyone's taste always, but he said last night, Alberto Contador slept tonight at my villa with a jacuzzi and a swimming pool. Be careful at Richie Port, this is not a motorhome. He's obviously getting involved in a discussion that's gone through the whole of the cycling community, Richie Port's caravan.
Yeah, it's. I think that one will run and run, and we'll see if the caravan itself /motorhome runs and runs. At the moment, it seems to be working. Richie Port, actually in the break, we saw a really nice slow motion. Maybe we'll get it played again of just how lean Richie Port looked. I mean, I raced against Richie Port back in 2010, and he was a powerful figure then, but he looks completely different, you know, physically. He's completely ripped. His heart, I mean, I don't know what his body fat percentage is, but I can tell you it's very, very low. It looks like cling film stretched over raw meat. He really is cut and looks very, very lean at the moment.
Well, we talked about lifestyle and the fact that he's very happy in his personal life at the minute. He's engaged to be married. Diet, and believe it or not, alcohol. He's admitted this, so we will talk about it. He said that, well, I've just stopped having a beer. It's amazing how much little things like that can make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a sort of marginal game, but again, you know, guys put weight on. You get the beer belly just through drinking beer. But if that's helped him, then it's certainly reaped dividends. I mean, he's always been a very, very classy rider. But you know, there's been seasons where you think, well, where's the real Richie Port? Where is it? Because I know Team Sky, you know, knew the potential was there, and finally they've unearthed it. But a Grand Tour is different. We know his best overall is 7th place. Generally in Grand Tours he's had a hard day. Will the new kind of super Richie Port get through a Grand Tour without having a bad day? I mean, we'll see.
And that 7th place was achieved when there was no pressure on, when it was his debut at the Giro d'Italia with Saxo Bank then. He just won the prologue in the Tour de Romandie. He'd had a fantastic few weeks of form. He took the pink jersey on that crazy day to L'Aquila with all the weather, the rain and the wind, and it was a day when there was about 12 to 16 minutes at one point between two huge groups on the road, and it shook up the Giro d'Italia for then David Arroyo to go and take on the pink jersey, Ivan Basta to come back late in the race. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant Giro d'Italia, that.
No, yes, it was the emergence of a new talent, but unfortunately, just from a Grand Tour perspective, he hasn't managed to build on that. We thought, I mean, he looked in very, very good form last year, didn't he, in the Tour de France? That was Sky's plan B after the unfortunate crash of course, of Chris Froome. And at one moment it looked like he could deliver, but it just wasn't to be. But I think he was ill a little bit last year again. But we'll see. It's going to be a very, very interesting day today. And as we said, could be a climb for Richie Porte to perhaps take back some time.
First Marco Pantani banner of this Giro d'Italia.
See a few of those in the coming weeks.
The climbs without you don't make sense. That's the fans' view. 9 minutes and 37 for a break of 5. 5 riders. Axel Domon, the Frenchman from ʻdʒiːro Mondial. Sergei Tsvetkov comes from Androni Siremek. Sylvain Dillier riding for BMC Racing. He's a Swiss rider. Jan Polans, the Slovenian from Lampre Merida. Sylvain Chavanel, the Frenchman from Yam Cycling. The last two teams, really, Lampre Merida, Yam Cycling, have lost their hopes of the overall. Androni Giocattoli losing theirs on the first day, really. And ʻdʒiːro Mondial, of course, with the retirement of Domenico Pozzovivo, no longer having anybody. So there were also uncontested guys that went out in the break. And we were talking about the calm that had been restored to the race so far today, at the least at the minute. You can see we're on the descent from the first Foce Capinelli climb, on our way to the main climb of the day. The fact that these guys aren't dangerous overall, the most dangerous is Polans at 19 minutes and 19 seconds, means that they can afford to be calm behind.
They can. There's no real panic at all. The tempo being set behind at the moment, this lead is slowly going out even further. We've still got a long distance to go, just over 75 kilometres. But just look at the composed riding of the riders in front. They're just riding a nice rhythm. Think of Saxo just sat behind, and then the black and blue jerseys of Team Sky, closely followed by Astana looking after Fabio Aru. But no threat at all. They'll be looking. So, I mean, the time bonuses will be swept up as well, which is quite interesting, should this group stay away. But
do you think they've got a realistic chance of staying away? I know it's not the hardest finish in the world today, but given the fact that we've got a few riders already down on general classification, we mentioned it could be a climb for Richie Porte. I know that particularly in Tinkoff Saxo, listening to Matteo Sozzato talking last night on Italian television, that they're particularly worried, and they think that Richie Porte wants to attack and get seconds back today. Also, you've got the guys like Rigoberto Urán, who's a minute down already. Surely, on a day like today, where you can have a few teammates around you, you can put a hard rhythm on at the end of it, with a couple of calmer days coming up before Campitello Matese at the weekend. Today's the day to get some seconds back, isn't it? Bonifications, or I should say bonus seconds at the end. Yeah,
it's a lot of time to pull back. It's a pretty strong group. And if you look at the, as we look at the young rider standings there,
Esteban Chavez at the top. He's a man who could take the pink jersey if he hangs along.
Yeah, we're currently on a part of the course. It's dropping for. There's not quite as undulating as yesterday. Yesterday was really like a sawtooth profile, hardly any rest at all. But they're dropping now for a while. There's a short climb, an uncategorized climb, where we'll find the first hotspot sprint at the day, and that's at Barga. That's at 97.1. Then it drops again, and then, although the final climb to Abetone is only 17 kilometres, the road actually climbs from 114 kilometres all the way to the finish, bar for a little spike just before the climb to Abetone. So the final run into the finish, very, very difficult, and it'll be interesting to see whether Orica Greenedge take it up all the way to the bottom, maybe looking after Chavez, or will we see Astana take it up earlier, or another team? It'll be quite interesting to see, but I don't think we'll see Orica Greenedge riding all the way to the bottom of the climb.
That's the pink jersey of Simon Clark. We saw the point standings a minute ago. The Maglia Rossa, the red jersey for Elia Viviani, who's in charge of that for Team Sky. This is the break as we look at the climbers' standings for the moment. Pavel Kochetkov in the blue jersey for yet another day after he took it on the third stage. He's 1 single point ahead of yesterday's stage winner Davide Formolo. Edoardo Zardini on the same points total of 14. Diego Lisi with 12. Domon, who's in the break, has 7 after his points earlier on today. But of course, points today coming at the finish, so it's not an easy one. If you wanted to be taking mountains points, perhaps today wasn't the break to be in, with just 1/3 category along the way. This is the thing that we're all worried about today, and it begs us the first real question of this Giro d'Italia as far as GC is concerned. Yes, we've had a couple of crazy days the last couple of days and people out of the reckoning, but Matt Stevens, if you want to win the Giro, a lot of riders and ex-riders suggesting last night on the television that this was the case, you want to show your strength on the first mountain stage, don't you?
Definitely, I think for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I don't know, to stamp your authority on the race, give yourself some confidence at the first proper test. Yesterday was a good test, but it wasn't a pure test, although we did see a weakness in relation to one GC contender, Rigoberto Urán. Certainly not lost the race, but that must have dented his pride and his confidence. It's about confidence and, of course, taking a little bit of time too.
10 seconds to gap between the break and the peloton. Malaguti, not sure he's going to make it. He's half. Gino Bartali stage today, heading from La Spezia to Abetone and into Tuscany. Bartali, the great Tuscan champion, of course. Have a breakaway of 5, Domodili, Polance, as well as Chavanel and Svetkov out there as well. Of course, we're talking about Gino Bartali, super Tuscan champion. What a memory, along with the likes of Fausto Coppi to remember. Every time we go through Tuscany now, the Giro d'Italia, I think we're dedicating a stage to the great man. He won 3 Giros, 2 Tour de France on the bike, but he's famous for being a saviour of Jews as well in World War II. He hid a family in his cellar and assisted the resistance in lots of efforts. Delivered notes, helped people across the mountains. A fascinating, wonderful character, and put up a real fight against the Nazis and the National Socialist rule in Italy as well. So Gino Bartali celebrated today with our stage in Tuscany. Inside 70 kilometers to go to Abetone. Just a quick reminder of what is there. Domodili, Polance, Svetkov and Chavanel. 10 minutes and 4 they have on the peloton at the moment. No reaction, as we've seen Alessandro Malaguti, the man who for the last hour or so has been trying to bridge the gap to these guys. Nipovini Fantini missing the break, being worked hard all the way through. But he's been given a load of bottles, has been told by his director sportif to drop back to the peloton. Peloton has been led by Orica Greenedge today, defending the Maglia Rosa, of course, and honouring it. They'll be hoping to keep it in the team, most probably today, if Simon Clark cannot make it, with Esteban Chavez, the Colombian climber from the capital, Bogota. In the meantime, we're having a quick look around Castelnuovo Garafagnana. Province of Lucca. Mentioned Tinkoff Saxo and Oleg Tinkov. He mentioned his villa. He lives very, very close to here at Forte dei Marmi. I wonder if he's going to put his team to work today again from the car with his, in inverted commas, increased influence, let's say, over the last few days. More direct hands-on approach from Mr. Tinkov.
Certainly could be, yeah, and another little added pressure there to
or maybe
try and
he wants
deliver.
the Maglia Rosa in front of all his friends from the village where he lives. Talked about Simon Clark, talked about Orica Greenedge. The gap again goes up to 10 minutes and 44 now. Is someone else going to ride at the front? In the meantime, let's go and talk to Simon Clark. We met up with him at the start today. Very proud and happy in the Maglia Rosa.
Simon, it's a mountain stage, but the last 2 have been pretty hard. What are you expecting today?
Yeah, look, 2 full days in the breakaway and now mountain stage is definitely going to be a challenge, but both myself and Esteban have prepared really well for this Giro d'Italia. We're going to give it our best crack at holding on to the jersey, at least with one of us today.
And how does it feel to be in that jersey this morning, Simon?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's personally a dream come true, and I'm just so proud to be able to hold it an extra day for the team as well.
The pride on Alpha, and pretty evident. Interesting impasse here, Matt. The fact that Orica Greenedge have been at the front, riding but obviously not giving it their all at the minute. We're coming up towards the feed zone for the breakaway after the peloton's gone through the feed zone in around 11 minutes time, unless the speed picks up before then. Are we going to see another team takeover? We're going to see the general classification teams getting interested, because this is, to my reading anyway, obviously is what's happening at the minute. Orica Greenedge have ridden for the first half of this stage. Perhaps they're just taking their foot off the gas, hoping that someone else is going to take over.
Yeah, I mean, the gap is slowly going out, and it will probably go out in it even more because the peloton will slow significantly through the feed zone. A breakaway, when they go through the feed, can pick up their bidons and their musettes far quicker, establish themselves, get what they need on board and be away. But generally speaking, when the bunch goes through, it's far more complicated, a little bit more chaotic, and I think it might go out to 11.5, 12 minutes through the feed. giving the peloton quite a lot to do on the run into the climb. As each kilometre now ticks by, it's swinging more and more in favour of this break actually staying away. So today, I think, unless things dramatically change, and as you suggest, will somebody take it up? If they don't, if we have a position where they've still got a lead of 11 minutes or so with 50 kilometres to go, I think it's looking very good for one of these riders to stay out in front. Possibly the most experienced rider here on your screen at the moment, just taking a bar. Just going to throw that musette off in a minute. That'll be picked up by an eager fan at the side of the road, unless he's very good and puts it into his back pocket. You never know. Sylvain Chavanel could be the man for today. Vastly experienced, and there's a little profile there. And he throws it off.
First Giro d'Italia for Sylvain Chavanel, normally a Tour de France man. Of course, Yam Cycling having to ride the Giro this year as they're a World Tour team for the first time. It is their Giro debut. Azure Desert, of course, World Tour for quite a while, and it's not been a good season for them so far. I'll be buoyed by the news that Domenico Pozzovivo is well. He was on the Italian television last night giving an interview, saying that he hopes to be racing again at the Tour de Suisse next month. So fantastically quick recovery if that all goes to plan.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of news. I mean, I don't want to dwell too much on that crash. It was nasty, and we were, well, I think everybody who was watching those images was, our hearts were in our mouths, basically. But gladly, it's far less worse than it initially appeared. And as I say, he was chatting on the phone today. We saw the footage on the internet and sounded pretty sprightly and full of hope for the next few weeks. So great. There's no fractures at all. It was just a really nasty blow to the head. So we're very glad that Mr. Pozzovivo is going to be back on his bike very, very soon. But as you say, when will somebody else take it up was to answer your question, Rob, and I don't think we'll see it for a little while yet. I think this is an interesting day. First off, the bunch are going to breathe, without a shadow of a doubt, a collective sigh of relief when this breakaway finally went. We did see quite a bit of activity, but it didn't take long for the elastic to break, and these guys, this group of 5 here, were given their leave, and they built up a very, very solid lead here. So give the bunch an opportunity to just rest up a little bit. The bunch will be far less nervy than it's been over the last few days. The parcours lends itself to what's exactly happening today. But again, towards the base of the climb, things will start to change. There'll be that feeling in the pit of the stomachs of the GC contenders. They need to move near the front. And I think on the approach to Abetone, we might see a couple of teams take it up. And I think we'll see Astana, maybe even Team Sky, maybe Team Saxo for a GC showdown on the slopes to the summit.
In Tuscany today, always nice to hear from Giancarlo Rinaldi, football journalist based in Scotland. His family are from Barga, the home of many Scots-Italians, apparently. Home of great Tuscan cuisine as well. More about that after the break and this breakaway too.
In association with the Israel Ministry of Tourism.
Everyone, welcome back. 62 kilometers to go. You're watching Sylvain Dillier, a Swiss rider who's come into the peloton with a fast finish. Interesting to see how it goes in the mountains. He's got plenty of training roads, of course, at home.
Yeah, some of the best roads in the world. I mean, as well as loving riding in Italy. Tuscany is my favourite place to ride and race. Switzerland is something special. It feels like you're riding on the track. The roads are that quick, aren't they? It seems as if you can just ride a couple of sprockets higher for the same effort. Really, really quick, smooth roads in Italy.
8 pro wins for Sylvain Dillier. 10 minutes and 19. The break having a gap that's just come down a little again. Heading towards Abetone today. 10 minutes and 18 as the Maglia Rosa group, the pink jersey group, looks like it's just woken up a little again. They've chopped around 40 seconds off. We talked about the winners and the losers yesterday, something that we're going to talk about in more depth when we get towards the climb. Final climb today up to Abetone, a place where we saw Fausto Coppi launch himself onto the world, really, and certainly onto the Giro d'Italia. One of the losers yesterday was Rigoberto Urán. Urán losing 2 men from his team, 2 retirements already from a team that looked more suited to the flat, to the mountains, for the Colombian who's finished 2nd in the last 2 Giro d'Italias. Road captain is Tom Bonham, riding the Giro for the first time. Here he is talking to us about what's happened to Rigoberto Urán.
If you get started in Sanremo and you have to go direction Genoa, you know it's going to be up and down and winding roads, and it's been like riding on the roller coaster all day long. We've lost 2 guys with crashes so far, so it hasn't been our best first week for us. But we have Rigoberto, he's going good. He had a bad day yesterday, but we will try to put him up in front again today, and then we'll see for the next few weeks how everything will end up.
Is that the corporate face of Tom Bonham talking? We know he's a superstar when he gets a camera in front of him. He's one of the most friendly, professional guys in cycling when you have to go and interview him. He's an absolute star, is Tom Bonham. But of course, he will know to toe the party line. We saw a lot of that going on in Italian TV last night with Astana in particular and Tinkoff Saxo as well, and their Italian riders who were, in Tinkoff Saxo's case, saying, no, there was no mistake. No argy-bargy at all between Roman Kreuziger and the rest of the team. Nothing happening here. Look away. Astana saying that Fabio Aru was feeling great and we're going to see him attack again today, and diʻtaːlja setting him up. Tom Bonham's case there, trying to cover up what was a really bad day for Rigoberto Urán yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, picking up from speaking to Tom Bonham, he always looks so upbeat, you know, regardless of the situation. Yeah, that was a little bit corporate, but I understand, depending on what press you read today, I've read information on the web that Rigoberto Urán is perhaps suffering sort of blocked up nose, a bit of a head cold, and that can affect your form slightly. Bit of a concern if it is the case, because the more deeper you go, even riding with a head cold, if that gets down onto the chest, it can be very, very difficult. And the last thing Rigoberto Urán wants, if he does have a cold, is a mountaintop finish. You can get through a flat stage, you can just rest in the wheels, you can, your team can look after you and almost usher you through to the finish without going overly deep. But if he doesn't want to lose any more time, he's going to have to ride hard today. And the other teams have seen what happened, they've looked at the general classification, dissected what happened at the finish, and look at trying to put more time into Rigoberto. So, yeah, there's no mention of that by Tom Bonham. He certainly wouldn't say anything untoward.
Well, out of the 4 aces, he was the loser yesterday. We had 3 winners, really, to differing degrees, I think. I think Fabio Aru was the big winner of the day because his team were riding fantastically well. Paolo diʻtaːlja, afterwards, his big main lieutenant on the road yesterday, said that it was important for Aru to see how his legs were before Abetone, to have a little go on that final climb, and the way they brought that gap back yesterday was ridiculous, wasn't it? Yeah,
there was a real, I mean, Astana rode incredibly well, just showing the strength in depth in that team. Really shredded the peloton. To our surprise, midway through the stage, we had that helicopter shot as we see the riders going through the feed here. And we couldn't believe the damage that had been caused on an uncategorized climb, in fact. But no, Aru went really hard from the bottom of the final climb, and there was only initially Alberto Contador and Richie Porte could stay with that initial acceleration. But as you're quite right, it's important to test yourself, just so you know where you are. You'll also look at the kind of numbers he was putting out, and I would imagine that Aru would be pretty happy with the way he performed yesterday.
Richie Porte and Sky managed to sneak off to the caravan afterwards. Elia Viviani, as the red jersey wearer, had to go and do some interviews again, so he was caught in front of the cameras, and he was the man everybody was asking about Richie Porte last night, and he said, well, it's been a really good day for Richie Porte. They'll be really happy with how it went. Do you agree with that?
I think so. Aru, I don't think, again, we don't know what plans team have until things unfold on the road, but just the way that Richie Porte was able to follow the acceleration of Aru. Contador, to be honest, looked relatively comfortable, and looking at the thing you need to look at is the way a rider will vary from their normal style. We become accustomed to the familiar poise on the bike of the top level riders, and all 3 riders, when Aru went, it was typical Aru, you know, elbows everywhere, but out of the saddle. Contador, 2 or 3 sprockets higher, just leaving that gear and out the saddle. And I was not surprised by the composure of Richie Porte. Those 3 guys looked very, very good. They were in very, very good shape. But I think it was, as you say, Aru dipping his toe in the water just to test how well, test the sensations, as the pros like to say, of the other main GC contenders.
We're in Tuscany. We'll talk about Tinkoff Saxo in a minute. Of course, that's where the boss lives, in Forte dei Marmi. This is Castelvecchio. very close to Barga, who we were talking about a minute ago, and it's in the valley of the Serchio River. You have quite an interesting fact about Barga, which we're approaching, don't you?
I do. I'm just going to rifle through my paperwork of all the research we've done. But no, but Barga has also been, since 1999, now just make sure you're comfortable before I give you this fact, the home of the European Gnome Sanctuary run by the Garden Gnome Liberation Front.
There you go. No comment.
True. Hashtag true.
In the meantime, eat with your mouth closed, Bernie. Lunchtime in the peloton. Alberto Contador behind, having his sandwich for lunch. Tinkoff Saxo. What on earth happened yesterday, Matt Stevens? Because we had Roman Kreuziger up in the break, and for a while, Tosato, Jules Jensen, the rest of them really putting the hammer down and chasing, as if they were chasing a group that didn't include a teammate. Afterwards, they all tried to cover it up and say, well, it was good we had Roman, we were just controlling the gaps. One, you do not ride like that if you've got a man as good as Roman Kreuziger 10 minutes up the road. Surely, early in a 3-week race that you want to win. And two, there were a lot of discussions at the buses afterwards. What's your quick take on that before we go to a break?
I think because of how, I don't know, because of how the stage unfolded, I think each team has got 2 direct sportifs on the road. I think because of how unpredictable and how unusual things played out, that there was a difference of opinion within teams. And apparently there was what we're hearing from Lars Mikkelsen, where there was a distinct lack of information on the road. And apparently he said that because of the lack of info, we just suddenly found out the lead was 10 minutes, and then all hell broke loose. And we'll talk a little bit more about that after the break.
10:58 is the gap for the 5 breakaway riders here on stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia. Back with the Giro d'Italia as the group rolls on. 11 minutes and 5. 192 is Bernie Eisel. That's the pink jersey of Michael Matthews. And 103 just alongside him for Lotto Soudal is Lars Yttingback, a former Giro stage winner. This is the breakaway. 5 riders up there. Chavanel on the right hand side. Yam Cycling will be very, very happy with that. Approaching the intermediate sprint. Bonus seconds would have been interesting had the peloton been coming up behind, as we see the king of the mountains for the minute, Kochetkov, doing some bottle running for Katusha. Those bonus seconds are going to go to the 5 men in the break. None of them dangerous on the overall, so they won't be particularly interested in that. Chance for the points jersey, an intermediate sprints competition for which there is no jersey at the Giro d'Italia. We mentioned before that it was a very, very big day for Astana yesterday. And we managed to catch up with one of the men who worked so hard to bring the group back. Tanel Kanga of Estonia and the Kazakh team Astana.
Tanel, Astana was working very hard yesterday. What about today?
We'll see how it goes, the stage. But one thing is sure, we don't want so many guys to be in the breakaway, so I'm not gonna say we're gonna control it from the start, but we keep our eyes open, and hopefully we're still there or together in the end, and we try to control the things as much as we can.
$55 kilometers to go. The pink jersey of Simon Clark, 10 minutes and 30 behind, heading into Barga, home of the Gnome Sanctuary that Matt Stevens was on about before the break.
I wonder if we'll see some gnomes at the side of the road with festooned with pink balloons, giving them a wave. Perhaps not.
I think there'll be pink ones if they are.
You would have thought so, wouldn't you? Things looking good for the break though at the moment.
They're looking really good. 10 minutes and 35. The 5 men in the break, just in case you're switching on, or Axel Daumont, still in the young riders category for Âge de Zella Mondial. He's the man second wheel with the brown shorts on. The man in the fuchsia pink and dark blue at the back, wearing the Lampre Merida jerseys, Jan Polans, another young rider from Slovenia. Sylvain Chavanel right at the front in the navy blue of Yam Cycling, the Swiss team. Chavanel, a former French champion and former time trial specialist as well. Androni Giocattoli, have a rider wearing number 18 there, second to back at the minute. That is Sergei Tsvetkov, a man who, if you've been watching the North American races with us for the last couple of years on Eurosport, he has featured heavily, getting his move back to Europe this time. Good winter for him. And at the front, in the red and black, for BMC Racing, that's Sylvain Dillier.
Yeah, Dillier will be pretty comfortable in a move like this. Remember last year, he was one of the BMC squad that took the World Team Time Trial Championship, so very at home, moving and rolling through and off. So a talented time trialist, or a time trialist as part of a team anyway, certainly used to measuring his effort. As we see, still not too much concern here at the front of the peloton. The riders have rolled through the feed, having a look at what's in the musette.
Intermediate sprint time. Tsvetkov is going to lead them through. No real contest for it. He sits down and listen to that. Tuscany salutes the Giro d'Italia. Such a great region for cycling, this as well. Of course, there's a lot of cliches around when you talk about Tuscany. You've got the gentrified Chianti-Shire image. Certainly in the north of Tuscany, the further south you go, you get to the likes of Siena. Some beautiful, beautiful roads around there. Real rural areas as well.
It's gorgeous. I mean, I don't know, many of you watching may have been to Tuscany. If you haven't, it's I can't say enough about it. I was in Tuscany last year in April. And I went to Pisa Airport, hired a car, and had to drive about 150 kilometres to this hotel. And every couple of kilometres, I wanted to pull over and take a photograph and just sort of soak it all up. Absolutely wonderful, especially on a sunny day. And this is where I used to take the team I used to manage for the training camps as well, because some of the younger riders have never been to Italy before. I wanted, the roads are good. Okay, February can be a bit changeable, the weather, but I just wanted the riders to soak up Italy and the culture and just get a feel for what it's like riding on these amazing roads.
Beautiful, isn't it? I remember 10 years ago this year, actually getting off the ferry at Livorno, coming from Bastia in Corsica, where I've been doing some studying in French. Went to live in Florence for 6 months. Absolutely in love with the place, and go back every single year. See friends. It is a stunning part of the world. And this is Barga. There you go, according to the tourist guide in the graphics department, one of the most beautiful villages in Italy.
Yeah, it's allowed, because of that, it's allowed to have an orange flag, apparently, denoting that it is one of the most beautiful.
They're not CCC Polsat fans.
No, no, well, maybe not. I'm not too sure.
Heading towards Abetone today, famous, of course, for the exploits of Fausto Coppi back in the day.
Apparently, there is a very famous jazz festival.
And there you go, 1954, pardon me, Abetone to Genoa. The 37th Giro d'Italia passed by, so lots of history down here, down the years. Fausto Coppi in 1940 winning here. First time that he made himself famous to the world.
They were real characters back then. I mean, there's so much to... Oh
dear, dear, dear. Problems for Tsvetkov. Looks as though,
that was very strange.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't know what happened there. He had his bike banked over correctly to the left, and then he just, I don't know whether there was something in the road. I would imagine we're going to get a slow motion replay of that. Fortunately, he kept his bike upright, but interesting.
He's Romanian, is actually born in Moldova. 52 kilometres to go today, as you can see. 177th in the overall standings. A pro since 2007, but he's had to work his way around, riding in many North American teams. 11 victories during his time there. And he's here with Androni, trying to make a name himself in this first Giro d'Italia for him.
I thought he was actually going off to take a natural break.
Here we go again.
Let's see what happened here. Did he just get that corner wrong, or the front wheel? He just got the corner wrong. I think he was afraid that it was going to go straight into the barriers. Luckily, there was a lane there to deviate through. I think he'd be more embarrassed than anything else.
Just about recovered it.
He'll be back on in a few moments.
As well that ends well for Sergei Tsvetkov there.
Still the Orica. No other team's taking it up yet. They're on the little, there's a small little rise to Barga before they drop down the descent that we nearly saw Tsvetkov come to grief on. And then a bit of flat, and then we hit a town called Bagni de Luca. That's the next hotspot sprint, and that's when it's not the actual climb of Abetone, but that's when the road starts rising pretty much all the way to the finish line, punctuated by a little climb and then a drop in before the climb itself. But the next 100 or so, well, not 100, 50 or so, 40 or so kilometres, primarily uphill.
Marco Fraporti there at the back on the right-hand side, in conversation with the man on the left wearing 74, who is Murilo Fischer. Fischer, the former Brazilian champion, now riding for Française des Jeux. Former Garmin rider as well. Svetkov then still chasing to get back on. 10 minutes and 4 to the advantage of Simon Clark's pink jersey group. Average race speed so far is 39.9 kilometers per hour. It's been quite a fast day, I suggest, so far. Certainly in the front of the race.
Yeah, it's been pretty quick. There was a bit of a skirmishing initially before this break finally established itself. And several of the riders here were the first riders to attack. There was a couple of breaks that formed before. Actually, it looks like he's actually broken his shoe. Yeah, that little it looks like his shoe is actually. That's quite interesting. It's flapping around. There's a little ratchet system on many of the shoes, very much like a ski binding.
So he's waiting for the car to come up here. It's going to be an interesting change, isn't it?
Well, most riders do have a spare pair of shoes. They'll have a wet bag in the back of the car that will have. There's Mr. Savio there. I wonder if Savio's an expert. Now, what is interesting here, there's a new rule, the UCI. You can't actually take mechanicals on the move. You used to get riders
the magic spanner.
Brakes, the magic spanner, which is sometimes just an excuse to get a rider back on. But quite rightly, that's quite a dangerous
We've got to
procedure.
find the shoes first. Do we have any spares?
Most teams do have spares, but it's not ordinarily something you'd think. So most teams will have gloves, they'll have gilets, they'll have capes, and a spare pair of cycling shoes. What he might have to do here is adapt. But I would suggest to get some electrical tape and just bind it round, or even an old Alfredo Binder toe strap might do the trick. But there you go.
Like sellotape in the end.
Electrical tape to bind it round. Really, you should be pulling over to do this, but this just shows the commissaires. I'll leave it to the commissaires. I'm just putting it out there that there is a new rule, but maybe because that's so unusual, they'll just let that one slide. But there we go.
In a break in the Giro d'Italia. Gianni Savio's there, Swiss Tony, changing a shoe ball. Yeah, it's very much like, you know, the rest. He's
actually having a chat there with Sylvain Chavanel. Yeah, I've just been back to fix my shoe, got some tape around it. We're all good to go. That's something you don't often see.
Nicely done. Flip straight back in, and there we go again.
A bit of cobbling on the move. Foot back in, and away he goes.
Francesco Bongiorno at the back for Bardiani. Francesco Bongiorno, actually the winner of the Under-23 Italian Championship, when yesterday's stage winner, Davide Formolo, was second a few years ago. Interesting that Formolo was also second to Vincenzo Nibali in the Italian Championships last year, the Senior Championships. Yesterday had a brilliant first place. First Giro d'Italia, as Bongiorno's back talking to the car. 22 years and 199 days for Davide Formolo. In fact, he is the second youngest stage winner in the Giro in the last 20 years. Only Diego Ulissi, when he won in 2011, was younger at 21.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there was a real assured performance from a rider of such a tender age. Just the way he attacked in the first place, then the way that he maintained it and actually increased his advantage on that climb shows that he's a rider of substance and somebody I think will be around for the next few years for sure.
48 k's to go on stage 5. .47 kilometres remain, still Orica Green Edge at the front, and still the time gap remains pretty much the same. 10 minutes and 22 as Tuscany turns pink for the Giro d'Italia. On our way to Abetone today. One more intermediate sprint to go at Bagni di Lucca. And then the climb, the first ramps of it begin. The climb proper begins at La Lima. 17 kilometres towards the end of the stage. And the first 4.5 kilometres, Graham barely exceeds 2%, but it's the next 8 kilometres that are quite steep at around 7%. Then it eases up a little towards the end again. 10:21, peloton at the minute still enjoying a relative day off.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see when anybody else takes it up. The interview before from Tamakanga, did he give too much away? Obviously, he doesn't want to give away all of his team tactics. But I think we'll definitely see Astana at or near the head of affairs. But that decision will come on the road, I think, from the director sportif.
Thanks for getting in touch on Twitter, #HomeOfCycling. Quite a few of you asking if yesterday's stage winner, Davide Formolo, who is now at 31 seconds on the overall, is the leader of Team Garmin, given the fact that Ryder Hausdal, the man who's stated to be the leader, is at 6 minutes and 6 seconds. A lot of talk yesterday in the Italian press, a couple of journalists, more famously Beppe Conti, say, no, this guy can ride up to the podium, he can do what Aru did last year. Formo and a few others were keen to take the pressure off him and say, no, let this guy grow, let him just go for stages. He doesn't need to have the weight of general classification expectation on his shoulders. Patience, the order of the day, Matt?
I think so, definitely. I mean, he showed a glimpse of what Italy hopes to come, and of course what Garmin Cannondale hopes will come as well. And it's vitally important they don't put too much pressure on his shoulders too early. I would imagine they're just going to give him they'll protect him. I mean, even Formolo himself has said that we're still riding for Ryder Hausdal, but Ryder, he was languishing at 6 minutes and 6 seconds, and we're only on stage 5. That doesn't look particularly good. But the word from the team, or the word from Formolo, is that they're still going to ride for Ryder Hausdal. But we'll just see as things evolve, because so much has changed in only 4 days. And it's such a, I wouldn't say topsy-turvy, but with so many hard stages still to come, things could change dramatically.
Well, winning a Giro stage can make a real change to a career, especially for an Italian, but you get the feeling that there's just much, much more to come from this man. On the descent here to Bagni di Lucca, intermediate sprint coming up. We see Française des Jeux with a couple of riders at the back. They've got Alexandre Génier at 1 minute and 18. Another man for the mountains for them could have been Kenny Elisonde, pardon me. He's at 17:35 though now.
Stage after 2 difficult stages. How do you see today?
It will be really different because the last 2 days was really hectic with a lot of little climb of descent, and today will be a little bit maybe more usual with a summit finish and maybe a battle with the favorites. Yeah.
FDJ working for Génier?
Yeah, we will try to bring him in a good condition for the last climb. And if there is some big groups, we will try to go in the breakaway for be a good support for him. But on the paper, we will try to bring him on the foot of the climb.
Foot of the climb for Alexandre Génier. He's looking okay. Lots of potential stage winners today, and including those climbers who might have lost a bit of time and aren't dangerous to the overall at the minute. They'll want stage wins, they'll want to salvage their Giro d'Italia.
Yeah, I mean, although they won stage wins, but looking at the current situation on the road, that lead holding steady, went up to 11, back down to 10. It's more holding than really being eaten into. And with 43 kilometres to go, this is looking pretty good. I think that as long as they've got maybe 7 or 8 minutes at the bottom of the climb of Abertone, they should be okay. But it all depends on the speed. I mean, you can lose so much time on these climbs, especially when you've been out in front all day. And only a smaller group, so your time riding in the front in the wind is more than, say, riding in a group of 10. It's obvious, so there's not a lot of time for rest, although a group of 5 is ideal. The kind of optimum size of a group, I'd say, is kind of 7 or 8, really, where everybody's going to work, but you just get that little bit more rest. So these guys have been out in front. It's a hard day, bit of wind blowing as well. So they're going to be tired by the time they hit this climb. Bear in mind as well, they've had some really, really hard days racing. And back in the Giro, when I rode, for example, on this climb, although we're coming up the climb in a different way, on the climb preceding it, the San Pellegrino, the group I was with were losing 1 minute every kilometre. So that just shows how much you can lose.
Well, they'll have to refuel at the end of the day. I'm not sure what type of local speciality they'll be looking forward to, but a speciality from this part of the world, certainly this part of Tuscany, is ribollita, a soup made of bread and vegetables, a celebrated dish with quite a peasant background, really. I'm not sure if you've ever tried any, Matt.
I haven't tried that, I must admit. I haven't tried that one. It sounds quite rustic, doesn't it?
Well, it's called ribollita because it keeps getting boiled. It gets stronger and stronger. It's sort of yesterday's soup that's reboiled again. And people do that a couple of times. It's got things like cabbage in it. It was a typical farm worker's meal. Not something I'm a particular fan of. It's got quite a strong and
I'd imagine
interesting taste.
It would almost become purer as it goes on, as it evaporates, and yeah, it would almost end up like a cake at the end of the week, wouldn't it? That you could just eat like a bun or something. No, maybe I'll try it next time I'm in Tuscany. Good luck. I'll give you some feedback.
Stick to the bistec alla Fiorentina at this side of the box, I think. Giant T-bone steaks that they serve in Florence.
Wild boar is quite popular around here as well.
Very
We had some nice wild boar when I was over in near Quarata a few years back. Some lovely cuisine over there.
Throughout the Giro, as well as the cycling, let us know what your favourite local cuisine is on your travels around Italy as well. Remember, #HomeOfCycling. Hopefully today, we're soon getting into the main part of the stage. Alberto Contador with one of the first images we've seen of him today. Will he have been happy yesterday? I feel that he won't have been best pleased with the fact that his team had to chase or was chasing Roman Kreuziger. There were all sorts of different explanations coming out. We saw a heated debate between Roman Kreuziger and Bruno Cegnalta yesterday. I'm not sure all was well in that team, and we've seen them use a lot of energy over the first few days already. Maybe they want the pink jersey today. It's going to be a difficult task, but whether the break takes it or not, surely they're behind that there will be some racing. 10 minutes and 36 for the breakaway of 5 over the pink jersey of Simon Clark for the minute. The last 40 kilometres are approaching on the first mountain stage of this. Less than 40 kilometres remain now, 10 minutes and 14 for the breakaway. Second starting to tumble again, not too violently at the minute. Really interesting to see how much the group behind is going to be interested in what's to come later in the day. This is how they're rolling at the minute. Orica Greenedge still at the front, Tinkoff Saxo just behind. You've got Astana, Team Sky with a few bodies together as well. And they just seem that little bit more strung out. We're going through narrow roads. This is Elia Viviani back at the car, perhaps taking a few bottles and talking tactics. Viviani getting some chat from the Sky car and perhaps even talking tactics for Richie Porte. Bottle running for the pink jersey, the points jersey today. He said he will get the odd chance to ride for himself, but he's here for Richie Porte. They're here with a plan. Is that plan for the GC contenders today going to involve the bonus seconds, Matt Stevens, or is 10 minutes for the breakaway? Are they quite happy to let them go and take the stage and it'll be what it'll be behind in terms of GC gaps?
I think looking at the fact we've now gone under 40 kilometres to go, with still only Orica Greenedge at the front, indicates to me that essentially there's 2 races today. This often happens. So if the tempo were to increase and should the breakaway get caught, I think that would just happen. I think what we've seen today for the first time is a holding pattern. Orica, they've got the pink jersey on the shoulders of Simon Clark just there in the centre of your screen, having a chat with Simon Gerrans, and they're not too bothered about what's going on up front. So there's 2 distinct battles today. I think it'll be the battle for the stage win, and then a battle for the GC contenders. But of course, yesterday was very, very difficult. Astana put the cosh down and put a lot of people on the back foot in difficulty, but that still hurt them as well. They're going to want to, and there's a long race still ahead, so they want to assert themselves in the race, but they have to do it strategically. They can't do it in a reckless fashion. They have to be very, very considered about when they apply the pressure. So they will look at today. There won't be, I don't think they'll be even thinking about the bonus seconds, but should they accelerate along with Team Sky, who I think might start to ride tempo a little bit as well, should they then absorb the group, you know, with a couple of kilometres to go, and then they'll look at the bonus seconds as well. But I don't think that's figuring in their plan at the moment, because 38Ks to go, still no other team at the front.
Orica Greenedge with a lot of men still there as well. The white jersey just behind the pink jersey. Esteban Chavez should be their man today. Could well move into pink if he stays with whoever gets there to the top. And how will it play out? As Matt said, still plenty of scenarios possible at the minute. The scenario that is building in probability as it stands is that the break takes the stage. Still not nailed on. We saw yesterday how quickly the gaps can come down. And again, you and I were just talking in the break there, suggesting that, you know, we haven't got a Kirienka out here. We've got a Chavanel, yes, but we've no super talented super climber. It's not the most deluxe group that is out there at the front, with all the respect to these guys out there, guys who could end up today taking a Grand Tour stage and making their name in the history of cycling. Chavanel, we know all about him. The rest of the guys, yeah, they've done little bits and bobs around there, but nowhere near the palmarès of the man who's riding for France and for the Swiss team Yam Cycling. Just remains to be seen what happens if everybody goes to work behind.
Yeah, especially given how hard the last few days have been. Everybody's had some difficult days. You can just see by the fact the best placed rider, as I've already mentioned, is Jan Polans of Lampe Merida, the Slovenian. He's at 19 minutes and 19 seconds. Chavanel at 37 minutes, Dumont at 40 minutes, and then Sylvain Dillier at 21 minutes. And we're only on day 5. When you look at the general classification, it is as if we've been through 2 weeks of a Grand Tour, not just a week. The last place rider on general classification, over an hour behind this man on your screen there, Simon Clark. That just shows what a war of attrition it's been so far. It's going to be some very, very tired legs, but at the moment, very difficult to pick a winner from that 5, should, of course, they stay away. But I think, had it been the Sylvain Chavanel of 5 or 6 years ago, he would have been a nailed-on winner, I think, but a bit more balanced, and he's still riding very, very well, but we'll see.
Bagni di Lucca on our way there anyway to the intermediate sprints, and after that the road begins to rise again. As Matt just said, the best man in the break is Jan Polans at 19 minutes 19 seconds. Bagni di Lucca, the thermal baths, 56 BC they go all the way back to. All about where we pass through on our way up to Abetone today. We've been in Tuscany, in the north of Tuscany, in Lucca province, and heading into Pistoia province right now. Stage today finishes right on the border between Tuscany and Emilia. The Passo Abetone. Still a bit of snow up there until very, very recently. Nice and dry, clean roads for today. Bayer Quintana in the middle of the peloton, still all bandaged up after his crash on day 2. Davide Formolo, stage winner yesterday on the wheel of the Astana train. Mikel Lander at the back of it. Richie Porte to the left, and there's Andre Greipel coming up to the front. Intermediate sprint is coming up. Sure, Greipel hasn't had a win yet, looking for some points in the bag. Another fast man working for Andre Greipel is Maxime Montfort. Let's go and hear from him. Well, here he is, the Belgian, Maxime Montfort.
Maxime, man, there's been a couple of hard stages so far. You've got another hard one today. How do you see it?
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy on this Giro. We only did 4 stages, and everybody is tired actually. And we don't have done a big mountain yet, so it's for today. So we'll see, but it will be really hard on the 2nd and 3rd week for sure.
Astana were riding so hard yesterday. How was that to be among?
I was in front, so I was a little bit disappointed because one moment we got 10 minutes on the peloton, and then Astana started pulling really hard. One moment I thought we could go to the finish and for me take the chance to win the stage and the chance to get some minutes bonus for GC. But yeah, it's how it is, and Astana did his race too. So, but some other opportunities are coming.
Opportunities today, we think probably as well for cultural reasons. The Italians would love to win today. Fausto Coppi enjoying a huge moment in his career here, but let's not forget that Eddy Merckx and Charlie Gaulle also enjoyed big moments in their respective careers too on this very mountain. It's not the hardest, it's the first uphill finish, not as taxing as those late in the race, but of course all the history of the great Fausto Coppi will be remembered, and perhaps in the minds of those who have good legs towards the end, certainly if they are of Italian nationality. Sergei Svetkov still in conversation. No shoe problems this time. All about getting the sugar required to be ready for the ascent.
I think that I like about Swiss Tony in the front there is the fact he's wearing a shirt and a jacket. There's no polo shirts, there's no jumpers or tracky tops. Looking sharp in the team car.
He's a man of tradition.
Even in these hot conditions, I love that Italian suave coolness of Swiss Tony.
Gianni Salvia there in the car. One of the great Giro sights every May. Gap has gone down to under 10 minutes, 35 kilometers to go. Will the break make it? Stay tuned to find out.
In association with the Israel Ministry of Tourism.
Inside 33.4 kilometres. The gap has gone down by around a minute in the last 5 kilometres or so. However, it's still looking pretty good for the breakaway. Certainly not nailed on as Sylvain Chavanel. The other 4 riders he's with him, Sergei Svetkov, Axel Domon, Jan Polantz and Sylvain Dillier, all take the last gels and bars. A few beat-ons as well before they get concentrated and ready into the climb. In the meantime, Bagni di Lucca time for the peloton passing through. Just up the pace rather notably in the last 5 kilometres or so. In the meantime, as we go through Bagni di Lucca, still plenty of time to talk for Orica Green Edge, which suggests it is nowhere near flat out yet. André Greipel on the left-hand side. Three hours in the saddle for our 5 breakaway riders. Giro d'Italia first climbed to Abetone, today's stage finish in 1928. In 1940, with Fausto Coppi's exploit on the Firenze-Modena stage, the world got to know that skinny young man from Castellani. He'd then become a legend pretty soon after that. 3 Giro stage finishes in Abetone, despite the fact we've seen it used in the middle of lots of other stages in the past, such as that one in 1940 when Fausto Coppi took the win. The stage finishes 1954, Mauro Gianeschi da Bodda, Tuscan for Toad in the end because of his clunky style on the bike. Charlie Gaulle, we already mentioned, 1959, he was the winner there, as we have Alberto Contador, pardon me, in a little bit of trouble at the minute. Probably about the right time for him to have these problems, certainly before we get to the final climb now.
Yeah, I mean,
Pace not on at the minute.
There's never a nice moment to have it. It looks like he's had a puncture. Quick change there, or it's a complete bike change actually. Just takes his bottles off, so no real panic as we saw the front of the bunch. No real hard pace been set by Orica Green Edge at the moment, so Contador will be back on pretty quickly. Again, it's not what you want to happen, but he'll be paced on pretty steadily. No panic at all, and just gradually weave his way back through to the convoy, to the back of the peloton, and then he'll be taken up back to the front of the peloton where he's been spending the last few days.
Tinkoff Saxo rider here last in 2011 when he won the Giro on the road, but had it expunged from his palmarès after that Clenbuterol episode at the previous year's Tour de France. There's Tosato just in front of him, and of course Paulinho as well. Nice and easy for Tinkoff Saxo at the minute, getting back onto the front. As you can see, this is the situation at the front. No severe pace, and of course nobody's going to take advantage of this for Alberto Contador. The etiquette is to wait here, hang on. The racing's not really on yet in the peloton, is it, Matt?
No, not at all, and there was no real panic. Again, it just shows the experience these riders are used to dealing with these sorts of scenarios. It would have been a bit, as you said, if there's a place to have one, it would be now. They certainly wouldn't want one should one of the other teams take it up at the foot of the climb. Then it could really dig into his reserves, and he'd have to use up a couple of teammates to get him back on. But as I say, looking increasingly good now. 31 kilometres to go for this group of 5 riders.
Domon, Dillier, Polantz, Svetkov and Chavanel looking to follow in the footsteps of the men we were just talking about. Mauro Gianeschi in 1954, Charlie Gaulle in 1959. And we're going to come to the 2000 ascent of Abetone in a minute, because the man alongside me was riding that day, Francesco Casagrande, another Tuscan rider who claimed the Maglia Rosa, then lost it to Stefano Garzelli at the end of the Giro in 2000. On that day they climbed from the north side, and before we had the Passo San Pellegrino, which was a difficultly hard climb. I'm told that the organisers were thinking of putting that climb in this year, but instead they've chosen to climb it from the south side instead of the north side that you climbed in that Giro d'Italia. What are your memories of the stage to Abetone back in 2000, the last time that a stage finished here?
Yeah, I mean, not great memories. I was riding with, fond memories of the race.
Enjoy because
it, yeah, it was just a wonderful experience. But I went through a lot of pain. I mean, I was carrying injuries and was just trying to get through stage by stage. So although we did actually win a stage, David Mackenzie picked up a stage when Max Scandri got a second place on one stage. My personal battle was to finish in the time limit. Because the speeds were so high, we hit the bottom of the San Pellegrino climb, and it rears up immediately. It's a very, very difficult climb. I was riding about 39-25 gear all the way to the top. I lost 15 minutes by the top, and I was in a big group. But interesting that when you look, I was looking back through, and please excuse me for just wheeling out these war stories, but looking back through some of the riders who I was riding with, I was 85th on the stage at 18 minutes, and then Matteo Tossato, one of Alberto Contador's teammates, was just behind at 19 minutes. Alessandro Petacchi was riding, and also a couple of DSs. Stephen de Jong was riding. He was at 19 minutes, and Matt White and Ivan Basso was also there riding for the modest team Amica Chips. So it's amazing to see the longevity of some of these riders, and some of the riders were there on the day. But no, a very, very difficult day indeed. But although we climbed a different side, the San Pellegrino climb, a remarkably different ascent to the climb of Abetone.
How old are you? Oh, I should say, are you older than Matteo Tossato?
I think I am. If I was racing here, I'd be the oldest man in the race by a long, long way. I'd have to have my own separate category. I'm 45 years of age.
The only reason I say that, I'm being nasty there, sorry, Matt, because Tossato's the oldest rider in the race, just behind Alessandro Petacchi this year. Both of them 41, by the way. Good stories though, 30 kilometres still to go. 9 minutes and 48 is the difference between the breakaway and the Maglia Rosa group, the pink jersey group that has in the minute just about everybody. And we're seeing a little bit of a change at the front here. The pace is being upped. A few different teams coming to the front. We saw Kevin Reza on the right-hand side coming to join the likes of Durbridge, who's been doing a lot of work today for Orica Green Edge.
Yeah, definitely. Well, FDJ do have a man, riding relatively high in the general classification, Alexandre Zenez. He sits at only 1 minute and 17 seconds off the back of very good ride yesterday. Just finished off the back of that lead group. But of course, FDJ rode a really, really strong team time trial, so they're looking good. But no, increasingly now, anybody with overall aspirations will be ushered near to the front, because this is when this part of the race will start to get a little bit more nervy. Again, riders with aspirations of doing something for the general classification, either trying to steal seconds or just hold on, they'll be preparing themselves, looking to their team to bring them to the bottom of the climb in the best position possible. So that's what we're seeing, a little bit more movement in the peloton now.
Classified part of the climb begins with 17 kilometres remaining. I wonder how Damiano Cunego is feeling. The answer must be pretty good, because Nippo Vini Fantini, working for the first time in this whole Giro d'Italia on the front of the chasing peloton. The group is just starting to change. The excitement is approaching. Come back with us for the stage finale after the... On the way to Abetone, are we going to see moves from the main contenders? We've seen moves from teams who really haven't achieved anything so far at this Giro d'Italia. Yes, the race is very young. We're only on day 5. But Française des Jeux, Nippo Vini Fantini and Katusha up towards the front. And Katusha working for Yuri Trofimov now. The winner of the Tour de Romandie, Ilnur Zakarin, disappeared off our screens in the last 5 days. People wondering whether he was going to hold that form. A few people worried that he might be going to hold that form for another 3 weeks after a very, very good last month or so. But it showed that, well, it's Trofimov, the man who's slowly come into form throughout Romandie, who's just finding a bit towards the end. He's the man they're riding for here, as we see that little first push on from the teams who haven't achieved something so far, already countered by the likes of Astana and Sky coming to the front as well.
Yeah, definitely. We've just seen Sky on the left-hand side. Fabio Aru has now made his way to the front on the right-hand side, just in the centre there, next to Kevin Redzak, one of the oldest riders in the race, Alessandro Petacchi. Of course, the stage just finished in his hometown. The riders now just making sure they want to stay near the front. That's why we're seeing this revolving kind of peloton at the moment, as riders move up, they move down, and then move up again.
A smiling Richie Porte next to a very serious-looking Fabio Aru, pointing to his side as if to say, there's my rival. Fabio Aru and Astana, in all the chat that they've had, they haven't really talked about Porte as much of a rival. It's all been about Alberto Contador, and when you see what he's achieved throughout his career, you can sort of understand that. But the way that Porte has been going, and on a climb like today, you have to say, looking at the profile, you know that anything can happen in a race, but it is suited down to the ground of Richie Porte, this.
It is. I mean, should Richie Porte be on a good day, the climbs with a slightly less savage gradient suit him very well. Just look what he did in Paris-Nice on that.
Him and Geraint Thomas together.
I mean, the way, I mean, Geraint Thomas rode fantastically well, but the way that Richie Porte for the last kilometre rode, and almost rode Geraint Thomas off his wheel. It's the kind of climbs, very much. I mean, it's a. Let's put Chris Froome to the side, because Chris Froome can ride very well on the steeper climbs too. But yeah, 6-7% gradient is the kind of ideal gradient where Richie Porte can really lay that power down. And given the fact how light he is at the moment, he's got a remarkable power to weight ratio. He's putting out the best numbers he's been putting out. So, but I think he's not been mentioned by Astana because they don't want to give him. Not talking about him in the press it's just psychological warfare. It's almost trying to think we're just kind of almost discounting him, because as soon as they bring him into the mix in conversation, they're kind of offering him respect. And I'm sure they do respect him, but they don't want to do that publicly.
We heard from Tom Bonan earlier on in the race. Do you think, or can you see in your own professional opinion, a way back in early on for Rigoberto Urán to take the pressure off him in the time trial? We expect him probably, alongside Richie Porte, to be the strongest on that long time trial amongst the GC contenders. But unless he recovers some of that gap that he lost over the last couple of days, that's just heaping the pressure on him to do that extra big performance there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Rigoberto Urán, he's on the general classification, he's actually down 1:11. So when you look at it, it's not too bad. But he just couldn't respond with that real stinging, sharp acceleration of Fabio Aru. And again, I don't know. We'll just have to see how he reacts. There was no mention by Tom Bonan in the interview we saw earlier on about the fact he's got a bit of a cold. But should he have a cold, I think it could be for Urán a little bit of damage limitation. I can almost guarantee we will not see him attack. He'll just try and ride in the wheels. He'll try and have as many teammates around him as possible. But considering the fact they've had several crashes, they've lost 2 of their number already, it means they're under strength. They haven't got quite the climbing prowess of Tinkoff Saxo, Astana or Team Sky. So it's going to be up to Rigoberto Urán on the latter slopes of Abitoni, I think, to look after himself. And we'll just have to see how he goes. But I think we'll see him follow rather than attack.
No real mountain goats in the break today. Plenty of them chasing behind. We could have 2 races on the road today if the stage does indeed go to the break. Because the way they're shaping up behind, a lot of people already wanting to make differences and recover something. There are obviously quite a few teams here who do feel that they can catch the guys up the front, the likes of Française des Jeux, the likes, of course, too, of Nippo Vini Fantini for Damiano Cunego working hard.
Yeah, it was interesting to see them on the front, but they looked they were making the tempo for a little while, but a kilometre after that, it was back. Orica Green Edge were back on the front, and the lead's coming down, but it's not tumbling. 25 kilometres to go. These guys now around 4 or 5 kilometres in front. It's we never get that. We always get the time gap, but sometimes to put it into context, that's a lot of road. But as the road gets steeper and the climb, it's gradual at the bottom, then when it rears up, that's where, once the big guns, the big team starts to increase the power, that's when we'll see that lead eaten into it. It's a healthy lead, but there you go. There's a 5-kilometre difference between these 2 groups on the road, 24 Ks to go.
Well, we're going to have another short look in just a few minutes' time at Juan Antonio Fletcher's stage preview, the final climb preview. If you missed it at Giro Extra earlier on today, as the gap is now down to 8 minutes and 23 and falling. Very, very interesting. Still balanced on a knife edge, really. But before we see Juan Antonio Fletcher's video, a quick reminder of what is to come. The final 17.3 kilometres. The climb starts once they get to La Lima, the categorised part of the climb. But for the first 4.5 kilometres, you'll hardly notice it on the screen because the gradient barely really exceeds 2%. The next 8 kilometres after that are steeper, goes up to 7%. That is when, if you know you've been on a bike, you can notice the change. The gradient then relents slightly to 5% towards the finish line, so it's harder in the middle, easier at the start, and gets a little easier towards the end. The road wide, well surfaced. If the wind's blowing, it could be interesting because it's quite exposed this south side. From what we've seen so far, it's not a ridiculously windy or gaily day.
No, there's a slight breeze blowing at the top, and it'll be interesting to, for those of you who haven't seen it, you'll see Mr. Fletcher on his bike riding up the climb, and there is actually some parts that are covered, although there's areas where it's exposed. And with about 2-3 kilometres to go, it's actually tree-lined as well. There's a canopy over the top before it opens out. And as you said, the last kilometre is relatively gentle. And I think if you're in contention then and you've got the wheels, we could see, I think we might see a group of 4 or 5 of the GC contenders coming through there. But who knows? I mean, it's been such an unpredictable tour so far, Giro, sorry, so far. It'll be interesting to see who takes it up.
9 minutes and 2 for the breakaway. That is Axel Demont on the right-hand side in the brown shorts. Alongside him was Sergei Svetkov for Androni Giocattoli, Sylvain Dillier, Jan Polans and Sylvain Chavanel. No real control, no real team taking one bit of control of the group chasing. 23 kilometres remain. There's a group of 5 up the road with a gap of 9 minutes and 11 seconds on the first mountaintop finish of this year's Giro d'Italia. It's been 2 crazy days so far. Are we seeing, in quite subdued racing for the minute, Matt Stevens, are we seeing the results of the last couple of days?
I think we are.
Because they've been crazy.
They have been unrelenting. They've been, for those of you sat at home in your armchairs sipping your Chianti, it's been...
At this time?
Yeah, perhaps not.
People watching us down under, maybe.
Come on, yeah, depending where you are, but no, or your warm beverage. It's been absolutely thrilling. But for the riders, it's been very, very difficult, and that's why we've seen a slightly more orderly day. It's still been pretty exciting. It's looking good for these riders at the moment, but still balanced on a knife edge. But this is more what we're used to in terms of midway through a kind of stage race. It's a little bit more of what we expected, and I think it's come as a welcome relief. No teams at the moment are willing to take it up, and that's because I think a lot of riders have got sore legs. A lot of teams have already gone very, very deep.
Last few bidons being taken for Richie Porte. The bar is about to close. 22 kilometres to go for those in front. Those behind have a little longer to purchase their finals beverages, and I think they're going to need them on this climb, certainly if the pace suddenly is switched on.
Yeah, they've got to make sure they're fueled. As I said, because of how difficult the last few stages are, riders have gone very deep. They've got to keep those glycogen stores up, get the carbs on board, and of course, because of how warm it's been, they've got to keep getting the fluids on. But great to see Viviani, although he's in the leader's jersey, he's happy to go back, get the bidons, and make sure all the riders who are going to be to the fore on the final climb are fully fueled up.
Viviani, the leader of the points competition, the Maglia Rossa, the red jersey as it stands. Taking those bidons and drinks to Bernie Eisel, Richie Porte and the rest of the Sky team at the front. A lot of the relative domestics of each team's going to be doing that. What's coming up, though? We talked briefly about Abetone. Let's go and get a reminder from Juan Antonio Fletcher, who wrote the climb this morning.
We are in La Lima, the bottom of Abetone climb. It's 17 kilometers long, but the first 4.5 kilometers are not that hard. After 4.5, that's where the real climb starts. Follow me, we'll check the climb. So now here we're at Cottigliano. From here to the top is around 11 kilometers. It's exactly where the real start of the climb is located. Keep following. So now we are again all these areas, all about hairpins. It's very technical. The battle is going to start, so it's going to be already probably a good pace from Astana right into the top. Piano Senatico, the road is getting more narrow and more steep. We're about 10% and it's 7.5 kilometers to the top. It's going to be interesting from here. We are into the forest now. Yeah. We are right at the ultimo kilometer, last kilometer, 1K to go. I can say the battle is over here. Now it's all about sprinting for the, who knows, one guy, maybe 5 guys at the top. We'll see. It's going to be very interesting to watch.
And whilst we've been showing That little recon from Juan Antonio Fletcher this morning. The pace has been upped in the Maglia Rosa group. Kevin Reza again to the front for Francis ʻdʒiːro. Interesting that Yam's cycling on far away behind. I'm sure they'll be wanting to just try and disrupt this rhythm as much as they can, because you look at this climb, it's certainly a climb that if ever a mountain stage was going to suit Sylvain Chavanel, it would be this one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the slopes, you know, although they do rear up, there's two sections at around 10%, but that's the maximum gradient. And as you said, the first part, very, very subtle at only 2 or 3%, but then an average of 6.5. So, yeah, a rider with the attributes and the experience of Chavanel, although I wouldn't say he's in the best of form, he clearly looked at this stage as an objective. We saw him very aggressive at the start yesterday, trying to get into the groups before being jettisoned out of the back and losing a vast amount of time, perhaps thinking ahead. But no, I think this is a climb where I think we could, from this group, we could see Chavanel perform particularly well. But still, the lead is now starting to drop. But the other riders, the riders in the break, still wanting to press on, but keep a little bit in reserve for that final push to the line.
CCC Sprandi Polkovic to show off that orange jersey of theirs for the first time on this stage 5. Talking of Polish riders, I was tipped off a few days ago that Przemysław Niemiec, who rides for Lampre, had targeted this stage. However, he has not been riding particularly well so far in this Giro d'Italia. He's lost a bit more time than he would have wanted to do. He's currently at 4 minutes and 52. Perhaps just enough to be allowed out for an attack, but of course there's a long way to go. Lampre aren't going to do anything because they've got a man in the break. Jan Polans is there. 19.19. Svetkov is there as well, a stage winner last year of the Tour of the Gila. Third in the end overall at the USA Pro Challenge, and that is a mountainous race.
That is a hilly race, so he's got a good pedigree. And at the moment, these riders, you just see they're all riding pretty calmly. They're all sharing the pace very, very evenly, but I can guarantee all of them now are just going to be thinking about themselves and how they're going to approach this last climb, and how far they continue to ride together, because it is a climb where you can ride as a group and you will get the benefit of slipstreaming. But this is the first time we've seen the first real sense of urgency on the front, and it's Kevin Reza of FDJ starting to lift the pace now.
Kevin Reza's a good man to have on the front because he's a strong ruler, he can sprint a bit, but he can also climb well enough as well. Not particularly this season because he hasn't been in fantastic form, but last year he was in brilliant form in the classics and the hilly classics. He was there or thereabouts in a lot of the final selections towards the end.
Yeah, he was. I don't think he won particularly often, but I remember him in the Tour de Basque Country and some of the hillier, shorter stage races. You know, finishing from that elite group of 40 or 50 and rolling top 3 and top 4. He's got an extremely fast finish, but he can stay there and survive as well. But today, he's definitely riding in the service of Geniez. They're just trying to make sure Geniez is well placed at the bottom of the climb. I don't think FDJ are wanting to necessarily bring the gap down. It's just about keeping the pace high and keeping Geniez well placed.
Up to Popiglio, the village that has a population of around just 500 people, on the banks of La Lima River. Lima River is where this climb starts, and that, of course, comes down from the mountains around Pistoia. That this race heads into Pistoia province. We've been in Lucca for most of the day. As you see, our first British fans, Sky supporters of this Giro d'Italia on our screen. I know there's no British riders there. A lot of you at home a little disappointed about that, but Sky here with Richie Port.
Well, the Aussies are having a field day so far in this race. We've got a possibility in a 2.5 weeks' time of an Australian winner and 3 different Australian wearers of La Maglia Rosa. Absolutely, well, it's an incredible start for Orica Green Edge, but the English speakers having a very good Giro so far.
Svetkov, the man at the back for Androni Giocattoli. We've seen his boss high at work today. We've seen some funny work, some duct tape on the shoes to try and get it working. Seems to be working at the minute. He's pedaling all right. We mentioned his results in the United States of America when he rode there. He's now racing under a Romanian license because he says that the national setup in Romania is much better than that of his native Moldova, and he's pretty happy to just go over the border, change nationality, and very, very ambitious guy. He's done everything he can so far in his career to ensure it's been a success. 7 minutes and 45 for a breakaway of 5 riders inside the final 20 kilometers on the first real mountain stage of this Giro d'Italia. It's by far and away a long way away from being the hardest mountain stage of this Giro d'Italia. It's certainly hard enough for the first week, a first week that has been crazily difficult so far. And Matt Stevens, we're just 2 kilometers from the start of the climb. The final climb of the day, Abetone, a place where history has been made. It's a second category climb, easy enough for the first 6 or 7 kilometers. 2%, 3%, then it goes up to 7%, easier towards the end. Are we going to see the breakaway win, or is this gap now, with all the movement behind, going to tumble?
It's starting to, I wouldn't say the gap's tumbling, but it's decreasing at a slightly more rapid rate than it was before. We've seen a bit more more of a sense of urgency at the front of the peloton, but this is that little dip. This is they've got about a kilometre or so, or 1.5 kilometres of descending, so they're going to make the best they can of this climb, trying to send this as quick as possible. As we see Polanc on the front, getting in that nice aerodynamic tuck, and then they'll be on the climb itself. It's a healthy lead, but it's one, if the pace is particularly quick at the front, it's one that could tumble. 18Ks to go, 7 minutes.
Jan Polanc there at the front. This is towards the back now as Bernie Eisel is hanging on alongside Davide Apollonio. 127 alongside them for Nippo Vini Fantini's Manabu Ishibashi, the Japanese rider. .655, that gap changing. The next 5 to 10 minutes are going to tell us a lot more, I think, about how this stage is going to play out. And look at the rhythm here. Even Orica Greenedge now riding. They're starting to sense that Esteban Chavez does have a real chance of taking the pink today. Or can Simon Clark hang on?
Well, it's basically, for Orica Greenedge, they've got two options here. I know that given the sort of rider and just the kind of nature that Simon Clark has, he will try and fight for that pink jersey. He will try and fight and hold on. Whether he'll do it or not remains to be seen, but they have a realistic chance that Esteban Chavez should Clark capitulate, take the jersey. So they've got two options there. I think Clark's going to be left on his own, but I think the protected rider will be Chavez. But there's not many riders that I think will be able to stay with Chavez should they start, well, when Astana, for example, start to light it up at the bottom of the climb. Should they do that, of course.
Marco Colledano had a crash the other day, just being dropped before we get to the climb. Polanc on the back here is a really interesting rider, just 23 years of age. He's from Slovenia. He's also had success at youth and amateur level. He actually won the junior Giro di Lombardia, so the junior tour of Lombardy, as we know, is the hilly classic par excellence towards the end of the year in Italy and on the international calendar. He's a winner as well of the tour of the Regioni Friuli Venezia Giulia, which is the northeast of Italy, very, very close to the Slovenian border. It's exactly the region where we saw last year Luka Mezgec take his first win, with all those Slovenian fans in Trieste.
It's a great, I mean, the Giro di Regioni is a very, very famous race, and it's a race I rode way back in the 90s, but it's a race, if you do well in, you generally will what they used to call passe professionnel in French, but that's a race where a lot of contracts are signed for the younger riders coming through, so for him to have won that, it shows the sort of pedigree that he has.
Abetone, the climb starts 4.6% for the minute, but it goes down to around 2% for the first few kilometres. Hopefully we can keep that percentage graphic with us. That'd be nice to help us out to see where the difficult sections are. 6 minutes and 25. It's not the gap now, really, but it is the rate at which that's coming down. It's starting to worry me for the sake of the breakaway, really.
Yeah, we've still, well, the road just goes up all the way now. The change in, there is, of course, a subtle change in pitch, but I think as soon as this group hit the foot slopes, there will be a real sharp injection of pace, and then I think we'll see that lead start to tumble. And we'll see who's the strongest out of the breakaway. But to survive now, they still have a chance, but they're going to have some very, very, very strong legs. As we've seen Mikel Nieve on the right-hand side just pulling over.
Mikel Nieve with the front wheel, and that's not a great time to have that now for Mikel Nieve. Such an important man in the mountain for Richie Porte. Dearie me, that's not good news for Sky here, certainly with the pace on now.
Yeah, Mikel Nieve, for himself, he was. We thought he'd be one of the riders that would be the last by the side of Richie Porte. He was distanced on the climb, the final climb yesterday, but that's not good. He's going to have to chase pretty hard now because the tempo is quite high. But again, I think he'll get back on just before we hit the bottom. But again, that's going to dig into his reserves. Not the kind of thing he wants at all at this point in the race.
Reminder of the vital statistics of Abetone, all the way up to 1,386 metres. It's a second category climb, as we heard from Davide Cassani early on. We've said Alberto Contador not really talking up this mountain either himself before the race. Do you think he'll have changed his mind about Abetone after the last few days and its importance?
I think he will. I I think this is going to be one of the pivotal points in the race. But sometimes we'll just have to see what happens. Maybe the gradients, and maybe there'll be a bit of an impasse. Maybe there'll be a stalemate. But I think we'll see a couple of the main teams really try and make some differences here.
Big change on the front because Tinkoff Saxo are at the front. Chris Juhl Jensen is working hard. The first time we've seen them with a wind in their face all day long. That must mean that they really want to do something here.
Definitely. I mean, the thing is, it's one of those climbs that I don't think we'll see Alberto Contador. Let's surmise that Alberto Contador is going to attack. He won't attack until near the top, because around 2 or 3 kilometres to go, the road pitches up again. He certainly won't want to go it alone too early. But actually, it's now Orica Greenedge back at the front. But I think it'll be at the back end that we're seeing the attacks, and I think there'll be teams riding tempo, and then the bunch gradually thinning down and reducing to maybe 20 or so riders. From then we'll see some action from the GC guys. But for the first few kilometres, first 10k of the climb, I think we'll see the main GC guys just resting in the wheels and leaving it to their teammates to set the pace.
Well, all the Italian professionals and former professionals that were interviewed on the television and are in the newspapers this morning, in the Gazzetta and what have you, they were all saying, if you want to win the Giro, you've got to do something today. And they were also saying, well, nothing wrong with taking the pink jersey here. It's a long way to take it to Milan, though, from here, isn't it?
Well, after today, there are 2 days where, although they're bumpy days, but they're days that we're going to suit possibly the sprinters or a small breakaway. I don't think they're days that are going to shake up the GC. But then when we move into the weekend, it is different. But given the strength of some of the teams here, I don't think it'll be necessarily a disadvantage for anybody to take the jersey at this point in the race. I mean, we've just seen Tinkoff Saxo take up the race without Alberto Contador in the jersey for stages 2 and 3. So I think they'll be pretty happy to ride at the front. And then what that does to the other teams, it means the other teams have to attack. So I think Alberto Contador will be happy to take the jersey today. If that, well, it just remains to be seen who will end up in the pink jersey.
What a first week of the journey. Look at the pace. It is on crazily right now. Peter Weening at the front, 5 minutes and 48. We've seen 2 minutes disappear in almost the click of a finger.
Just in that little conversation we've had, yeah, another minute's been slashed off the lead. This is that little descent. Of course, the lead is a couple of Ks in front still. The main peloton haven't quite hit the very bottom of the climb. As you see, a young fan, I think probably at the top of the hill there.
Sylvain Chavanel at the front of the breakaway. Just behind him, Sylvain Dillier in the red and black there for Switzerland. Jan Pollant is the man in fuchsia pink and dark blue. Coming up there in the brown and white of RCS Sport, you have Axel Domon, the Frenchman. Also with him, Sergei Țvetkov, the now Romanian rider. He's in the navy blue, red and white.
It's quite interesting here. You can see the gradient here. The riders are actually still riding as if they're on the flat. They're still able to ride through and off. They're still able to get a little bit of slipstreaming. It's automatic sometimes with 15 Ks to go now that you think, they're just going to ride in the front and start attacking each other. Look at the speed they're doing there. They're still riding at quite a good rhythm, and definitely a benefit to ride through and off as a unit.
23 kilometers an hour. Inside the last 15k. Peter Weening, Michael Matthews on his wheel. Simon Clark there in pink as well, with Gerrans in front of him. Right at the back, Esteban Chavez. Bit of looking round there for a couple of the YAM cycling riders. Of course, they have Chavanel at the front, and their main concern at the minute is trying to make sure that they keep Sylvain Chavanel out in front with a gap. But when all the racing is on with all the GC teams, it's almost impossible to slow things down.
Yeah, I think at this point in the race, or you'd actually just wind up the guys, that you wouldn't actually make any friends. I think here that rider was just looking round. I mean, there's nothing they can do now. They just need to make sure they finish safely and compose themselves for another few days. And this is where Andre Greipel now
dropped.
Certainly wouldn't expect to see him hang on for too long. It's just a matter for him now to get to the top of the climb as easily as possible.
And there should be no problem for the Gruppetto making the time limit today. It was
There's
very close for a couple of riders yesterday. Michael Matthews apparently wasn't far, as we see a bit of conversation there.
That was interesting. That was Matthews just saying to Weening to move over to the right-hand side, and that will force riders into the right-hand gutter. So it was just a bit of a shake of the head there to get Weening to move over.
Passing of a bead on as well around a few riders at the front. Carlos Betancourt getting some assistance from Orica Greenedge. Betancourt now the de facto leader, really, of RCS Sport. He is Where is he overall? 13 minutes and 51. It's not particularly good, and I think he'll be looking for stages later in the race.
Definitely. Maybe some of the I can't see betting for the moment.
A first attack from Sylvain Chavanel. Sylvain Dillier is trying to follow. Polance is there as well, and we will see maybe who is strong and who is very, very tired at the end of a long breakaway today. Chavanel taking Dillier with him. At the minute, nobody able to follow. Interesting to see if anybody can get on the wheel. Chavanel probably, obviously more than probably feeling, as we see his little attack there, that not everybody's pulling their weight right now.
Yeah, there was a few riders pulling a few faces. And we can see one rider already distanced. That's Svetkov already out of the back, number 18 there. He's now just going to try and battle on and try and salvage his stage place, but it's not looking very good at the moment. Looking at the tempo being set, look at that, a couple of 100 meters gap opened up already.
4 minutes 59, 4 riders then at the front. The first to go is Svetkov. We will not be seeing him towards the end of this race.
Yeah, there's a little dip on the course here, then it kicks up again, then there's another plateau before then it's all a climb all the way. So these sections, this is where the riders can try and maintain the lead a little bit and keep working together, have a little bit of a rest, but an interesting little tentative attack there, thinning that group down to just 4 riders.
4:49, it's coming back quickly, very, very quickly as we're on the way through Cazzotti. 12.8 kilometers remain until the finish line at Abetone. See some of the team buses parked down there as well. It's a stage finish where we can't fit all the buses up the road, so an indication of how narrow it gets at certain points and how little parking space there is at the ski resort at the top. Domon, Chavanel, Dillier and Polance. 4 minutes and 38. The time is tumbling, but we've seen the first attacks at the front from Sylvain Chavanel as Polance receives a bidon from a soigneur on the side of the road. Tinkoff Saxo to the front again. They're in numbers. On the right-hand side, you can see the pink jersey of Simon Klock, the white jersey of Esteban Chavez, as Chavanel goes once more. Not once, but twice. This is his day, and he obviously feels that he is the strongest out the group here.
He certainly is. He's attacked twice now from the back, levering a bigger gear, using that torque, using that remarkable strength that he's built up over the years.
Dillier looks like the only man who can follow him at the minute.
Looking at Domon, he was sat right forward on the saddle, indicating he's not comfortable. That's what you see when riders are on the edge. We call that riding on the rivet, because the old saddles they used to make back in the early days that actually have rivets on the end to hold the leather in place. That's where that phrase comes from. But I think it's down to the 2 Sylvains at the moment.
Sylvain Dillier at the front, the Swiss rider for BMC Racing in the red and black. Behind him in the navy blue, the Swiss team Yam Cycling, financial backed team. Sylvain Chavanel. This is Polance, who's attempting somewhat of a recovery. Slovenian rider for Lampre Merida, the Italian team, and behind him, French team AG2R Mondial with their French rider Axel Domon. And it looks as though the hard work has paid off well, but if you've been dropped once or twice, the chances are once another attack goes, it just gets so difficult to follow them.
Well, this is that other little bit of
Domon obviously feels that he can give something though. Time to go on the counter attack. It's getting really interesting out there now. 4:21 the gap. Domon looks behind. A second win maybe from the AG2R rider.
It does happen. I mean, sometimes you can go through a really bad patch and then recover better. And bear in mind that 2 attacks like that from Chavanel are going to take a fair bit out of him. Perhaps he's recovered. And a nice sat-down attack there. That's what we call a stealth attack.
Thanks to our friends from Cutigliano who've put that bicycle together for us. This is what awaits the riders, though. The summit finish from La Lima to Abetone, averaging 5.4% over 17 kilometres, but the middle 8 kilometres over 7%, and that is exactly where the breakaway is headed now. Dillier with the latest attack off the front.
They're really setting about each other here, really to a really exciting racing.
And he's trying to catch Domon, by the way, who just put that attack up. Chavanel, has he blown all of his energy on trying to get the Domon? Pardon me, has been caught, so it's Dillier going out the front. Domon didn't last so long.
I think it's weird. Sometimes you're in a breakaway and there's a stage win on offer here, you know, so you sometimes go a little bit deeper than you know. It shows perhaps a little bit of an experience, but Dillier here looking very, very strong. Remember, he's a very good time trialist as well. Looking pretty composed, turning quite a large gear there at the moment. Let's see what the kind of gap he's opened up. Now Chavanel there, just sat behind, not panicking, just trying to close that gap to the Swiss rider. At the moment, he looks pretty strong.
His teammate Philippe Gilbert wearing 42 there, right in the group of the pink jersey, the Maglia Rosa. On the left-hand side, you have Alberto Contador's team, Tinkoff Saxo. Alongside them, Astana, who really did expend a lot of energy and a lot of quality on the road yesterday. What will they have today? This is Sylvain Divier looking behind to see Polance and Chavanel. Divier now 24, the Swiss. One win on the road. That was at the Tour of Normandy. And a stage of the Tour of Alberta, pardon me. Tour of Alberta was where he actually launched himself onto the television screens as a stagiaire it was back then. On our screens here on Eurosport, remember the evening, Divier winning a stage on what was a great win for the team, because I think Cadel Evans had won the day afterwards as well. Super race for BMC Racing then, and Sylvain Divier was part of the World Championship team time trial team. Looks as though these two guys are on the rivet, as you say. Polance looking around at Chavanel, knowing that Chavanel perhaps swinging a little here.
Definitely Chavanel perhaps waiting there. Polance just looking over his shoulder and then leaning on it, testing the Frenchman. He goes again with that little effort there from Polance. Has actually managed to bring back the Swiss rider, and it looks like they'll soon be back on terms. But some real surging right. It's interesting there, the different styles that are adopted on climbs. Some riders like to sit there, pedal a low gear, hardly change pace, but Polance there using his series of rapid accelerations to eat into the lead of the Swiss rider. They're back together.
Patrick Gretsch on the front through the middle.
Game over for Matthews there, flick of the elbow. I think that's the last we'll see of Michael Matthews today.
Just enough breath to mutter a brief conversation about how everybody is there as Polance decides that he's feeling better than everybody else. It's his turn to attack now with 10.5 kilometers remaining on this first Giro mountain stage of 2015 to Abetone. 4 minutes and 4 seconds. It's still not nailed on that they're going to make it.
It certainly isn't, but did you see the way that Polance looked across at his opponents there? Sylvain, the Swiss and the French rider. He looked across, he made an assessment and he accelerated away, he sat down. What he would have been looking at is the body language. He'd have been hearing the breathing of the other riders, and you can sense when another rider is in distress, especially when he's been riding all day. You get to understand the rider. He sensed the moment was right. He's gone. He's opened up a gap.
Axel Daumont try to make his way back. 4 minutes and 11, he sees the motorbikes come past him. That's never a good sign. Behind, the pace really, really high still.
Andres Aizia in the centre, one of the oldest riders in the field on the right-hand side. Matteo Pezzato, Ivan Rovny on his wheel.
Well, they've got great guys for the medium mountains as well as the steep mountains. Paulinho there too. 164 is the latest man to be dropped. That's Caleb Fairley, the man from the United States, riding his first ever Giro d'Italia. 10.2 Ks to go. Peloton on a section of 6.6%. I guess it's going to just ramp up as they go around this hairpin.
I wonder, I mean, at the moment you've got 3 teams, like 3 little arrowheads on the front of the peloton. When will we see one team take it up? There will be at some point in the next few kilometres a distinct change in pace. This is still a sizable group here. Riders being shelled gradually, one by one. I didn't think I'd expect to see number 101 on the back there.
That's Sander Armé, of course. So we've got Jürgen van den Broek, who is 100. I've fallen foul of that already this week myself. Remember,
look very similar in stature as well, don't they? Very rangy, tall riders.
Oh, with the number 108 sadly retired for reasons we've explained this week with Walter Weylant's tragic death a couple of years ago. It's now the number 100 taken up by the usual leader of those teams. This is the situation in the race. Front of the race on the top left-hand side of your picture, Jan Polance of Slovenia and Lampret Merida. Axel Daumont down at the bottom left. He is behind a chasing group in the top right-hand side of Divier and Chavanel. This is the peloton. 9.8 kilometers to go for the break. And the break led by Jan Polance. This is Axel Daumont. The way it looks, he's slowly drifting back towards the peloton at the minute. This is what is left of it. Scabo Grumai, the man we talked about from Ethiopia, on the right-hand side towards the back as well. Had a hard day yesterday.
Yeah, Philippe Gilbert as well, just next to him, just the last rider in that group, fighting to stay in contention. Still around 80, 90 riders there, so substantial peloton left. But when will one team take it up? Still 2 teams on the front. The Canary yellow, Fleur yellow. Tinkoff Saxo and And the bright blue, look at them riding side by side up this climb, almost half-wheeling each other. That's André Zeitz and Matteo Tessato.
Astana then looking to impose themselves. Sky, for the minute, just keeping cards close to the chest. From the image we're looking at, they don't have too many cards there.
Hey, Richie Porte was sat in the middle. I did see Richie Porte, obviously only the diminutive figure, who sat in the middle of the bunch, but didn't notice too many other Sky riders around him. As we see Polance here, he really has opened up a lead here, looking pretty comfortable at the moment. 9Ks to go, 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Engaged now in his own personal battle.
He's approaching the hardest part of this climb, as you can see, 10%.
Look at the face there of Sylvain Chavanel. We used some interesting facial expressions. Him and Tommy Voeckler, I think, bidding for the World Gurning Championships at some points, but both of these riders seem to be in a lot of distress now.
Chavanel on the right-hand side, the former French champion. I don't think he'd argue with the fact that he hasn't really been anywhere near his top form this season. He's been a little disappointing, despite the fact that he's raced quite a few race days. He rode Paris-Nice as well.
I think that the thing that's good about that he's still, although he might have had his best days behind him, what he's still willing to do is go out on the attack and show his... I am Sylvain Chavanel, and he's riding, he's a protagonist. He's a rider that I've liked for many, many years. Okay, and he's got a wonderful, rich palmares, but he's still not afraid to get out on the road and attack.
4 minutes and 10 for Polance. It's holding at the moment. Riding really, really well, but can he hold it? 8.9 Ks to go.
Quite interesting here, Rob, that he's only got a neutral service car. He hasn't got his own team car behind him. I wonder if we'll see in a few minutes. Probably because the gap isn't significant enough. The Lamprey team car's just behind BMC, and I think if that gap opens up,
here we go.
A little bit more.
Exactly what you're talking about.
Straight up here now, we'll just get the encouragement of his director sportif, and that can make a difference.
It's also demoralising for these two guys to see that car go past.
Well, it signifies that the gap is opening and not closing. And look, there's just empty road now. Polance really, really riding very strong.
20 seconds. 20 seconds is the gap we've been given for the first time. We're waiting for that time check. 4 minutes and 6 to these guys, who are climbing at a fairly decent rhythm. But for the minute, again, not one single team taking over. It's just those two teams, and as you suggested, Matt, almost half-wheeling each other at the minute still.
Yeah, it's a fascinating battle, isn't it, between those two teams. Obviously, Chavanel got a bit of a second wind, got it on the big ring. Just look on the left, on the right-hand side there. That indicates that the gradient has lessened a bit. He's left behind dello.
Does that also indicate that he studied the climb?
Well, he might have studied the climb, but what happens, especially the slightly heavier riders, what you can do, you can use the climb and the different pitches in gradient to your advantage. He's a very, very strong rider. He's not a pure climber, but what he can use, he can throttle back on the steeper gradients, and when the road flattens out, he can then use the power that he has to his advantage and then close the gap. So it's about using your attributes in relation to the differing pitches of a climb, and he stuck it on the big one, levered it over a bit, managed to distance dello, and we'll just see if he's got enough in the tank to close the gap to Polance.
Warm day today, a lot of riders with jerseys open. Richie Porte with his jersey open there, you see on the right hand side as well. Steph Clement doing the same thing for Yam Cycling. This is Jan Polance, the leader on the road. 4 minutes and 12 over the pink jersey group, and he had about 20 seconds over Sylvain Chavanel, who is chasing him. Concerted chase though for Sylvain Chavanel, as we saw him flick back into the big ring. Is he advancing? We might be about to find out. This is Sylvain Chavanel. Still some clear road in front of him though, so he can't be that close.
Chavanel using a larger gear hit out of the saddle, trying to lever it round, and then when he gets back,
first bit of an attack, and it's Tanel Kanga for Astana, going up there, putting in some of a really, really bit of a dig, and it's followed straight away by Ivan Basso. Pardon me, Diego Rosa. Diego Rosa is the man who has a bit of a go.
Yeah, checked straight away by Ivan Basso. Ivan Rovny, the other rider on the front of the peloton.
Straight away, Pirazzi comes across.
Pirazzi in those space age shades he's got on there, very distinctive.
So just make sure, is that Pirazzi? Basso willing to let that go at the minute, just on the wheel of the man from Astana, who is Diego Rosa at 2 minutes and 47. It is Stefano Pirazzi. Thanks for that confirmation.
Fair play to Polance in front. He's actually holding this. He's only lost 5 seconds despite the couple of attacks here. The lead will soon come down, but with 4 minutes, 7.7 kilometres to go. What a ride by Pollance at the moment.
Nobody's going to worry about Stefano Pirazzi, by the way. He is 14 minutes and 49 seconds and still 4 minutes and 3 off the head of the race here. Chavanel losing time, 27 seconds behind Jan Pollance, who leads. .6 Ks to go. It's the first big climb of the Giro d'Italia to a summit finish. It's only a second category, not the hardest mountaintop finish we're going to have here. But Jan Pollance leading the race, 4 minutes ahead of the pink jersey group. His breakaway companions drifting off behind. Now another attack from the front from Astana.
This is interesting. Interesting play here.
And this time it's Mikel Landa. Mikel Landa is at 1 minute 05. This means that those behind have to really monitor that.
Mikel Landa's had a very, very good season so far. Took a good win. I think it was in Tour de Basque country a couple of weeks back.
On home roads, because he's a Basque rider himself.
Up a very, very steep climb. Really showed himself here. That's an interesting marker. He's going to leave it to the other teams. Astana now don't have to ride.
Harder section for Jan Pollance on the 10% gradient here. 3 minutes and 56. Stefano Pirazzi, in the meantime, being hunted down by Mikel Landa.
That's an interesting little move there by Astana. They now can just sit back, leave it to Tinkoff, Saxo or Sky to take up the chasing.
Oh, does Sky have enough resources? Look, Richie Porte almost on his own there. The pink jersey is alongside him. Simon Clark holding on for dear life and holding on pretty well at the minute.
This is what riding in a leader's jersey can do. You wouldn't expect Simon Clark necessarily to stay in this group, but let's have a look at how many riders are left. 1 or 2 riders now going south, trying to look for the white jersey of Esteban Chavez. The Landa has now caught Pirazzi.
Chavez in around 20th position there. The only other man left for Orica Green Edge at the minute. This is Pirazzi in the green at the front, the man who finally achieved his dream after attack around the years for Bardiani that was unsuccessful. He's probably the man who's attacked most in the last few years without any realistic hope of winning a stage. He's always there to make it interesting, but he's attacked here, has Landa with him, who is a very, very big rider, a quality rider from the Basque Country in the north of Spain. The top left-hand side of your picture, the leader of the race, Jan Pollance, with Sylvain Chavanel chasing him, but Chavanel, to me, Matt, looks to be really struggling.
No, I mean, Pollance seems to be riding. He's got a lot of momentum, whereas Sylvain Chavanel really does seem to be struggling. He's definitely distanced Sylvain Dillier, so is at the moment in second position on the road, but looks to be in quite a state of distress.
Esteban Chavez in the white jersey right at the back of that train of Astana riders. He's on the wheel of Fabio Aru at the moment. Richie Porte is right on the wheel of the pink jersey of Simon Clark, but noticeable by their absence, Sky.
Excuse me while I just clear my throat there. No, there weren't too many riders round Richie Porte. Richie Porte, as I say, was sat right at the head of affairs on the wheel of his countrymen. So quite interesting. Normally you would see riders like, you'd expect Leopold Koenig to be there, and also Mikel Nieve, but we do know Mikel Nieve had some difficulty at the foot of the climb with that bike change and that puncher.
Good work from Astana, but it really has made Tinkoff Saxo work at the front here. Ivan Basso doing most of that work at the minute, and we're seeing the first influence of Ivan Basso in this Giro d'Italia as a gregario, as a worker, a domestique, whatever you like to call it, for Alberto Contador.
And then we saw it at the first part of the season, way back now in February, where Ivan Basso set up Contador in the Vuelta Andalucia, and that was the first showing for Basso and how valuable he's going to be. But of course, he's won this race twice before. His GC aspirations are finished now. He just wants to ride in the service of Alberto Contador, and that's what he's exactly doing today.
Uran in the group, nowhere near, pardon me, the front though.
I think, well, Uran, I mean, on a climb like this, you want to be riding near the front, but also it's of benefit to ride in the middle as well. You can get a little bit of slipstreaming. So it's a balance. It's quite warm in the middle. When it's very, very hot, although there's a bit of shade here, it can be quite overpowering, but also you do still get a bit of slipstreaming. So it's good to see Uran still there, but again, noticeable by the absence of any teammates.
Well, with Sylvain Chavanel second on the road. In the meantime, the Maglia Rosa group are on the hardest section, as Pollance hit the section at 7%. It's about to get quite a little easier for him in a kilometre's time or so. Ramps will go down to an average of 5%. This is Basso at the front for Tinkoff Saxo.
Pollance at the moment still riding very, very strongly. 346, only 59 kilograms is Pollance.
Richie Porte is there for Sky, isolated. Here comes Darwin Atapuma in the red and black for BMC. Chavez is there in the white jersey on the wheel of the current race leader, Simon Clark, who is hanging on wonderfully well at the minute. Uran in the group, as we say, a little further back. We mentioned Sky, one of their men we spotted right at the back of the pink jersey group. That was Konstantin Svitsov. Not many other riders around. This is Basso putting in a strong turn.
Yeah, Basso there, just pumping out that rhythm. Just on his way, looked like Mick Rogers actually. Another attack.
Pirazzi's going to go again. Stefano Pirazzi once more. Reeled in once already. Not a particular worry, pardon me, for the peloton as the speed is up at 22 kilometers per hour. It's as if somebody joins him again. That's when the rest of those guys behind have to worry.
Well, nobody's really responding to this because he doesn't pose a threat overall. The battle in the bunch that you see just behind an absolutely flying Pirazzi at the moment is all about general classification. Should anybody from GC start to attack, that's when we see teams starting to follow.
And they love him, don't they? Listen to that roar as he came around the corner there. The man from just north of Rome.
Polans, though, is doing a hell of a ride at the moment.
Astana to the front. Things are about to change. Astana to the front, and Tinkoff Saxo are relieved of their duties after Ivan Basso. Apparently his tempo not good enough for the team from Kazakhstan.
Well, as soon as the blue jerseys went to the front, Ivan Basso just dropped straight back. And Pirazzi now catching, it's Tsvetkov, part of the initial breakaway.
Tsvetkov the first to be dropped out of the 5.
He was.
5.6 to go in the meantime for Jan Polans. 3 minutes and 28 seconds. Looking okay for him at the minute.
He's looking very, very strong. His lead is coming down, but it's not tumbling. He's certainly not capitulated, and actually looks very, very strong.
Astana not keen to let anybody go, even if it is Stefano Pirazzi at 14 minutes. After racing a hard race today, Paolo Tiralongo yesterday saying they wanted to keep control of everything, and it was interesting because Astana yesterday did race as though they were a big team with a big name. A lot of people talking about Fabio Aru, not yet a huge name in cycling. Okay, he was on the podium here last year, he raced a great Vuelta a España. There were all those doubts and rumours and nasty things going on before the Giro, of course. They've come here though as if they were racing with Alberto Contador to win. They've come here really, really showing and flexing their muscle.
They certainly have, and they caused some damage yesterday. They really, really did. And at the moment, I mean, we've seen Aru attack in the Giro and in the Vuelta a España last year off some really, really hard paces. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to thin things down and try and isolate the leaders.
It's Mikel Landa again, as we just see Diego Lisi struggling towards the back. This is Carlos Betancourt again being dropped, or being very close to that happening. What on earth has happened to Carlos Betancourt?
And Ulysses as well. I mean, he's a man from... Oh, Simon Clark.
Pink jersey goes, Simon Clark. So, unless there's an immediate recovery here, Simon Clark will be being ridden out of the pink jersey today. And the Orica Green Edge hopes will rest, as probably we expected in the end, on the shoulders of the young Colombian Esteban Chavez.
Fair play to Simon Clark, though. He's ridden for as long as he could. He didn't just ride at the back, he rode right at the head of affairs, just like you'd expect from somebody in the jersey of a Grand Tour. But unfortunately just can't keep with the pace at the moment. 5Ks to go for our leader.
This is Jan Polans of Slovenia, leader of the race today, being encouraged even by the stewards who set up the barriers there. Everybody willing him on as Paolo Tiralongo, former worker for Alberto Contador, puts his pace on the front. And look at this, a great fight being put up by Simon Clark. He's not going to give up on pink that easily.
He won't give up at all. If there's an opportunity for him to get back on, he'll certainly try. He won't put up the white flag just yet, but look, just to the right of Richie Porte in the white jersey, taking a sip was Esteban Chavez. He at the moment is the Maglia Rosa elect.
David de la Cruz being dropped as well. One of the few mountain men left for Rigoberto Urán at Ethics Quick-Step. It is not a good week for the Colombian. In the meantime, Tiralongo really riding hard now. Contador, Porte, Chavez and Urán follow. Astana looking ridiculously strong again.
Tiralongo hasn't got out the saddle. This is where the gradient really pitches up. Just the face, just grinding out the gear, whittling this group down. It looks like Richie Porte, Sitsov has managed to come alongside Richie Porte. We're very happy with that.
Davide Formolo still in this group as well, as is Ryder Hausdal. And the first attack from Alberto Contador of this 2015 Giro d'Italia. We did not see that coming.
We certainly didn't. Accelerate it hard. This is what he does best, stamping on the pedals. And it's Fabio Aru trying to close the gap.
Aru follows him, Richie Porte there as well, Esteban Chavez, but no reaction as of yet from Rigoberto Urán. It's Alberto Contador. We wondered if this was hard enough for him. He talked down the importance of today's climb. He obviously feels good, and Tinkoff Saxo want the maglia rosa.
What an incredible acceleration by the Spaniard. He's quite comfortable. He just rides out of the saddle, but Richie Porte is trying to come across. It looks like Aru is struggling at the moment, but this is the steepest part of the climb.
Richie Porte really grinding his teeth here. This is a real climb for Richie Porte. And look at Alberto Contador.
He's riding on the big plate at the moment. He's on the big ring. Just shows the strength of the man. He favours riding out of the saddle. He's a rider that can spend 20 minutes out of the saddle at any one time. This is the way he likes to ride. But Richie Porte is equal.
These are our three men. These are our three men at this Giro d'Italia. We talked of 4 races. It hasn't gone well for Rigoberto Urán for now. The 3 men who are playing out this Giro d'Italia so early on the roads. It's only stage 5, Matt. Aru in the blue, Contador there in the yellow, Porte on the right-hand side in the black. 5Ks to go. Who's going to be the next to go? It's Richie Porte who attacks.
This is great to see. Love it when the GC contenders start to attack each other, but this is where these 3 riders, the out-and-out favourites, can put some daylight between them and anybody else who's got aspirations of the podium.
Should Jan Pollens be worried, because that gap has shattered 2 minutes and 8 seconds, and look at the pace from these guys. For Fabio Aru, he's getting some help. Somebody from Astana is coming up to join him, and Fabio Aru has just attacked.
This is great. It's like 3 boxes, it's like a boxing match. 3 riders trading blows. This is absolutely fantastic racing, but it's rather staccato in its style. It'll favour Jan Pollens as they accelerate and decrease their speeds. But Pollens, look at him, trying to fight for the stage win out of the saddle.
We've seen Mikel Landa riding so well for Astana. Here again, with Aru on his wheel, and this group for the first time just starts to settle down for a bit now, Matt.
Yeah, they've established the lead now. A little glance over the shoulder there of Alberto Contador. There's definite daylight, so Mikel Landa now. A little bit of order now. If each one of these GC contenders, great. You don't often see all of the GC contenders attack, then attack, then attack, but Landa now happy to set the tempo in the front for Aru.
Let's remind you, Esteban Chavez has been dropped by this group. That means that on the road at the minute, the virtual maglia rosa is Alberto Contador. Alberto Contador, as it stands, with 3.4 kilometres to remaining, riding himself into the pink jersey. The situation behind is being pushed on by Giovanni Visconti. Pollens on the left-hand side with 2 minutes and 16. Well, those behind probably happy enough to let him win the stage. Contador, will he want the stage win as well?
Possible. There's 10 seconds on offer. Bear in mind, Simon Clark was the leader. Second place was Chavez. He's been distant at 10 seconds. And then he had Roman Kreuziger, Alberto Contador at 17 seconds, closely followed by Fabio Aru and Dario Cataldo, both from Astana at 23 seconds.
Mikel Landa doing all 3 riders a favour here at the minute, putting some vicious pace on. Contador was the first to attack. There is Chavez, who's been dropped back to the second group on the road. He remains the best young rider in the Giro at the minute, but I think he could also lose that jersey because Fabio Aru would go into white as it stands. A lot of change already on just stage 5 of this Giro d'Italia. There's so long to go still until Milan.
It looked like that was Leopold Koenig of Team Sky, who was also there. Visconti looking over his shoulder from assistance. He certainly wouldn't get it from Koenig. He certainly wouldn't get it from Roman Kreuziger.
And there's Rigoberto Urán, pardon me, Matt. Rigoberto Urán, who has had a nightmare start to this. Ryder Hausdal on his wheel for Garmin. We wondered what the sort of second-tier favourites would do this Giro d'Italia. Urán, with his 2 second places successively in the Giro, had to be bunched amongst the big 4. These guys up the front have the teams. Aru, Porte and Contador showing their quality on this climb.
Yeah, just the sheer ferocity of that acceleration, the explosive power on the steep pitch of the gradient there from Alberto Contador. There was nothing anybody else could do about it, and it drew Richie Porte and it drew Aru, but now I think Rigoberto Urán is just going to look at damage limitation and trying to stay within that group now, and it's up to Movistar now to chase it down.
Movistar were chasing down with Jesus Serrada. It's still Mikel Landa, the fellow Spaniard, who is pulling on the front in his turquoise jersey for the Kazakh team. Astana. 2 minutes now for Jan Polons, who is riding for his life. This would be a game changer for him in terms of future contracts, fame, and his status and standing in the peloton.
But look at the determination on this young rider's face. Eating into the tarmac, basically. He's still riding on the big ring. He does look remarkably strong. He's just churning a huge gear at the moment.
Oh, almost a minute of a gap for Contador, Aru and Port. That is huge already on stage 5. You talked about Uran limiting the damage. Substantial damage already done, and Mikel Landa is making it worse for them with every single pedal stroke.
As soon as the road reared up, I mean, we thought that Alberto Contador might try something. We didn't know whether it would be Aru who would attack first, but it was certainly a surprise to see Contador go so early. But that attack, he knows this climb. We know that the team have been over it, chose that steepest part to break the elastic, but he's going to be pretty thankful that they've got a Mikel Landa here, because there's opportunities here should they catch Sylvain Chavanel for some bonus seconds as well.
Movistar trying to chase, trying to reduce some of the deficit. Jesus Herrada doing a really good job here. What a race. 5 days in, this Giro d'Italia proving to be exceptional in every single way imaginable. Aru, Port, Landa and Contador. Landa working for Fabio Aru. Contador was the first to attack here. Richie Port followed. Aru also had a dig. Each and every one of the riders has tried to distance the other here. Each and every one has had a dig. Are they content with what's happening at the minute? The gap of around 40 seconds, bit worse than it was at a minute than they had a minute ago, but of course Movistar starting to work and the rest of the peloton perhaps having some sort of recovery period. In the meantime, this man looks like he's probably going to ride himself to a stage win.
It does look very good for Polans now. He says still got that rhythm going, just lifting himself out of the saddle to try and churn that gear. Look at the reception he's getting from the Tifosi here, but we will not see Landa come off the front now. I don't think we'll see Richie Port or Alberto Contador or Aru even share the pacemaking. This is about Landa just sacrificing himself for Aru now.